Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Or maybe we should try another one. Eta, hola, hola. Okay, that's better. Welcome to the University of Johannesburg. And today we are definitely going to spend a great time together, exchanging knowledge and information. Today's event is the Community Engagement Gender-Based Violence Forum. And for those that are part of the community-based organizations and the students, you'll be aware that this is our second GBV forum for the year. Without wasting any time, I'll just wanted to first ask those that are with us in the room, let us respect our guest speakers. So when they are on the podium, you can just put your phone on silent. If you have a question, you can just note it down. We'll definitely have a Q&A session. And then this is a hybrid event for the students or the community members that maybe you want them to be part of this event. We're definitely live on the UJ Community Engagement Library YouTube page. So you can share the link, but we'll also project it so that they can be part of the conversation. I also wanted to indicate to those that are with us for the first time at the venue, our community engagement student volunteer champions are at the reception area. They can definitely show you where the restrooms are. If you need any assistance with that, you can definitely ask them for help. We all have programs on our tables. And we humbly apologize for starting late. It's just due to technical issues. And some of our CBOs, we could not leave them behind. They were at Soweto campus, but we're glad that they managed to arrive safely at our APK campus. For the welcome remarks, and just to give you an overview, a recap of the intention of this forum, I'm just going to invite Mr. Tsepo Pride Malele, who's our community engagement specialist from the Soweto campus. May we please give him a round of applause. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. So when I was sitting with Lebu, I said that I would actually want to learn in terms of like, how do I greet everyone in their own languages, right? So that I can acknowledge everyone. And we're arguing about it. And the first thing that came into our table was that I should actually start greeting everyone in Chitsonga. So I kind of forgot though, but I'll remember it, right? Avsheni, Minjan. I mean, okay. Okay, yo, Zulu, it just went out of my head. Sanbona. Oh, Ninja. Oh, so Zulu and Tsonga are kind of like similar, right? Okay, Mulweni. Yeah, Xhosa people, you guys are sleeping. Mulweni. Okay, thank you. And how do I say good morning in Ndebele? Luchan. And what other language am I forgetting? Goeiemorgen, right? Goeiemorgen. You guys are so disappointing because we are a rainbow nation, right? And we should be knowing these things. And it's very important that when we greet each and everyone, we acknowledge everyone, right? So good morning. As introduced, my name is Tsepo Pride Malele, and I'm a community engagement specialist based at Soweto campus. So I will be doing the opening and welcoming remarks. Some of you have been part of us in this journey when its inception started last year. So we had established the community engagement gender-based violence. Before it started as a one meeting that we had last year, where we all came together and we thought, since we are working with, community-based organizations, whether you call them NGOs, there's quite a lot of issues that are, prevalent in the communities, and we should all come together collectively and addressing this kind of an issue. And we saw it fit that since we have, a forum whereby we discuss some of the help that the university is doing with the NGOs, how about we come with an initiative that is actually targeted at gender-based violence, because gender-based violence is a very crucial issue in the country that we need to address. And if you read more onto it, you'd understand that the stats, they keep on going up. And we looked at, when we're doing research, we find that there's actually kind of a neglected sector or an economy that has been neglected, which is the nightlife economy, right? Most of us, the students, the people at home and all that, we go and visit and frequent some of these spaces, whether it's your social spaces for social entertainment, your tavern, your nightclubs, your restaurants, your event places. And if you look at gender-based violence, in most cases, it emanates because of what's been happening and being portrayed in those spaces. So we looked at that and we say, how about we collectively come together and speak and raise awareness and educate, right? Educate everyone so that the people that we bring here, their subject matters, and they understand gender-based violence to a certain level. And it's best that when they speak, we engage with them, we learn from them, but not only should we let only their presentation go into waste. I believe that what's been presented here is to say, hey, look at what I have found, I have researched, and it's something that you can come and ask me and find more information so that when you go home, because the essence of this is that when you go home, you are able to speak about what is actually being shared here, right? Are we all together? I don't think everyone is still in the room. Are we all together? Okay, thank you. So as a recap, right, with the first forum that we had this year, we had the InDrive team, which actually they presented. I mean, we are speaking about the nightlife economy, also the transportation. They form part of nightlife economy, and you would notice that there were gender GBV cases that were reported, from drivers, emanating this kind of actions to the passengers and so forth. So we thought, as together, if we work together with the transportation industry as well, we can raise our awareness and also educate. So InDrive came and looked at the presentations that were presented and spoke about some of the technologies that they're implementing to make sure that they ensure each and everyone's safety. We spoke about vetting of the drivers. And when you look at that, some of these things were not there. So that was one of the things. And then we also spoke about, collaboration with the private sector in order to make sure that only not the transportation in terms of the e-hailing, but also looking at the likes of Ria Vaya, your how bars and so forth, so that they can also come together and be part of this initiative. And we also spoke about doing outreach activities which are driven by students. I think mostly the students were the ones that were looking into this to say that there aren't much activities or outreach programs centered around GBV that are done, and they would actually love to be part of that. They would love to raise awareness onto that. And we can see that most of the youth actually, I call them, e-activists, right? They're quite active on social media platforms and all that. But if there is no one who's helping them to drive this kind of initiative, they won't be able to speak about that. And also we spoke about, the university opening doors for regulatory bodies to have access to research so that the laws can be amended and updated based on the current data from research. And we should also, look for sponsors that would actually sponsor this kind of initiative so that we can have more engagements. So as a way forward, I know that Ms. Fiona Matlori, our senior manager, she will speak more onto our way forward, where are we and all that. But some of the initiatives, I think, Prof. Khan and Ms. Fiona have been in meetings, trying to expand on this kind of initiative, which I think they will share more onto it. Is that also we will be going forward with, we did speak about the trainings that we want to conduct. We want to conduct trainings, and these trainings are offered for free. They are offered for free. So we want the communities, we also want, people from the restaurants, from the taverns, from the clubs to be part of these trainings. Because if they're not part of this training, the message won't be, fruitful, if that's actually the right better word to use. But we would love, as you are members of the communities, we all come from somewhere. We know these places and all that. So as one of the things that I would love to urge each and everyone is that in your street, in your community, please find a club, a restaurant, a tavern that you know, and kindly please invite them, right? Please invite them. We will share more information, but you can share our emails so that they can find us. So you can share our cell phone numbers to make it even easier, so that they can reach out to us and find out about this training, because we want to train, the staff within these spaces. And also, I would like to thank each and everyone for, honoring the invitation. I know it's still a bit shaky in terms of weather conditions and all that. Sometimes you wake up, it's hot, sometimes it's cold and all that. We really appreciate everyone for taking their time and honoring the invitation to come here and be part of this amazing initiative. And we also, would love for you to be part of it continuously. We have 4 forums in the year. Please be part of the 4 forums, and we also have the trainings, which are going to be 4 as well. Please also be part of the trainings and expand, share the invitations. And also, I can't call the NGOs by name, but we really appreciate your support. Our guest speakers, thank you very much for, availing yourself, starting from Prof. Khan Davis. She has always been a great supporter for community engagement initiatives. And also Ms. Theo Budiwe, thank you very much for honoring our invitation. You have been with us since from the planning, the engagement, and the meetings. And also Ms. Leonie Marais, I think she just stepped out as well. She is one of the partners that we have had, and she's actually quite passionate about gender-based violence, and she made it intentionally the first time to say that she would love, to be part of it and present in some of the engagements that we have. And also Dr. Shahida, she has also been a great supporter for community engagement. Thank you very much for coming. Everyone, I can't really call your organizations and all that, but we really appreciate your support. Thank you. And yeah, thank you, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tsepo. I think everyone is equally excited to be here, and I don't want to waste any time. So I'm going to introduce to you our first guest speaker. Her name is our very own Prof. Corné Davis Beitendach. I hope I said it well. I just want to share a little bit about Prof. Corné Davis. Prof. Corné Davis Beitendach is an associate professor at the Department of Strategic Communication at the University of Johannesburg. Her field of expertise is gender-based violence, and she has published several national and international papers on this topic in academic and industry platforms. Prof. Corné has been interviewed on national television and radio channels multiple times and has been leading funded research projects on GBV. She has supervised a number of master's and doctoral studies on GBV and gender identity. She lectures modules in strategic communication at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels. She has received the Faculty of Humanities Dean's Award for Outstanding Academic Citizenship in 2022 and won the overall Woman of Stature Award for South Africa in 2023 for her work related to GBV. I think we can give a round of applause. She is currently involved in national and international GBV research projects, including TIAS Foundations, Help Match Your Fingerprints, GBV Victim Mapping and Profiling, and University International IPV Prevention and Intervention Study. Can we please welcome Prof. Corné Davis Beitendach. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Lebo. I have prepared a little presentation for you. Right. I'm very honored to be speaking to you at this event about the topic we all feel so passionate about. And I will just take you through what we need to do and why it is so important that we start working or continue working at a community level. Let's see how this slide changer works. Right. So what we do have about gender-based violence is a lot of statistics. And I don't want to bore you with statistics because there are many statistics. We have them locally and globally. And this is no news to us. Statistics don't surprise us anymore. It's almost as if our society has become desensitized. That it's numbers. It's numbers that we know. But what we do know and what we have to pay attention to is that these numbers are not changing. When have we seen the numbers actually change? What has been different? In fact, the numbers are increasing. And this is very surprising if you consider that we have the National Strategic Plan. We've got the most advanced legislation in the world. We've got the World Health Organization. We've got United Nations. We've got all the NGOs who work tirelessly, and there are many. There are more than 300. Do you know how many are we now? NGOs working just with GBV. I've been a trustee of Matla Abana since 2012. I'm working with Tears Foundation. I've spoken to Jada about Teddy Bear Clinic a few times. There are so many organizations working at it. So we know that the work is being done, right? There's a lot of work being done. So how no change? Why don't we see the numbers shifting or something having impact in gender-based violence? How can it be that we have so many people? I mean, you know, I'm on the committee, the pillar 6 of the National Strategic Plan. There is a plan, there's action, there's a 100-day challenge. There are things being done, there are people feeling passionate about it. So how is it that we're not seeing a change? I put this on screen because this is an article that I published in 2023. And I'm not going to give you a lecture on systems theory, don't worry. It's a Niklas Luhmann functional differentiation. But in this article, I break down that it's multiple systems, all excluding victims of gender-based violence. But what I actually want to get at and why I put this slide up is because where is the most prevalent form of gender-based violence happening? I know we're talking now about the nightlife. I'm excited to participate in this research we're going to be doing to reduce GBV and focus on that. But that's still a small percentage. Where is GBV most prevalent? What is the most prevalent kind of GBV? Intimate partner violence. This means it's happening at home. And this means the biggest source, the context, is the family. And if we're going to wait for the funding to do the more research, we are doing the research. That's not the point. We have research. We have a lot of research. We have a lot of statistics. We have a lot of facts. What we don't have is impacts. We don't see a change because we are not working from the bottom up in the families where it is happening. As you know, most cases of gender-based violence are never reported to police. We know from the statistics that we receive, or what we see, even at university level, students also do not report. There is a helpline, but if you look at the number of cases actually reported against what we know from other sources that are happening, people are not reporting. And we know the reason for this as well. Before I get to this, I just want to, we know the reason for this as well. I want to go back. I want to go forward. Stigma. We remain too ashamed to talk about it. We don't want to be associated with having experienced it, because the problem is that even families protect the perpetrators. Listen to the stories of people who have experienced child sexual abuse. The stigma prevents families from talking about it because of the shame, which means it's being perpetuated, which means that's why we're not seeing any results, because it's not being addressed at the family level. And we, as community engagement members, participants, if I can achieve anything today, it's for us to start thinking about how are we going to get there? How are we going to get, I've got slides here and steps and things which I'll show you, but if it's not in our minds, if we're not speaking out, if we're not acknowledging, because you know, it's 1 out of 3, it's 1 out of 3 of us here. And every victim has a perpetrator. It's one of us. It's us sitting here. I've experienced it myself in my childhood. I've grown up with patriarchy. I was in an abusive first marriage. We've experienced this, but somehow not enough for us to say, how are we? I'm trying to change it. I'm an activist and I'm really doing the work. But all of us can make a difference in changing it. And I want to point this out to you. If you look at the Internet Watch Foundation, if we have to get a wake-up call about what's going on in our society, the online child sex pornography that's going on, that's happening in the homes, because that is making these perpetrators believe they're okay, because there are millions of them distributing child sex abuse images all over, which is a shocking reality, because this is also filmed, distributed in many cases from home, perpetrated by people who are known to children. Perpetrators of child sexual abuse are usually known to the victims. Remember, this is what's happening within our families, within our homes. The other issue is the child sex trafficking. This is the fastest industry, or they say the second fastest growing industry in the world is the child sex trafficking. So as soon as we're talking about online child sex pornography and we're talking about child sex trafficking, we're again back to the family. There are people in the families responsible for what is happening. So that is why we're saying that community is our only way. It's only if we can devise ways of reaching communities and the families in those communities where this is taking place, is that we're going to see any difference happening. Because everybody's waiting. Okay, there's a law now, there's now a council. The president has approved the council. Now, the council doesn't even have members appointed yet. We don't even know what is the budget for that council. So if we keep waiting for the top down to happen, for things to be implemented, for government to take action, we're still getting nowhere. And that is why I'm appealing to you as community engagement members to say, let's work together more. Let's find new ways. Let's be innovative about how can we reach the communities. And I know our UJ Community Engagement Office does tremendous work. My students are now on my way to class, by the way, just after this. They are doing a community engagement project, and they are working with Boys and Girls Club this year. And a lot of other departments, they are doing, the work is being done. But all we can say at this stage, it's not enough. Whatever we're doing now is fantastic, but it's not enough. So until all of us as members of this communities, see what can we do? What can each one of us do? We need to put our thinking caps on, because, you know, some of you may say, well, I'm just a student, or, you know, I haven't got capacity, or haven't got resources, I haven't got funds. About you, and I know I've got so I'm not, I'm going to whiz through it. But each one of you can do something about what we're saying first. If we're saying raising awareness and education, and raise awareness and educate people in your community, your immediate family, your friends, the place. You can all raise awareness. You can all challenge stereotypes. If you take away that devalue women, you can say, but that's not okay. Don't say it's not okay. That is part of raising awareness and educating. Speaking out and saying that's not okay. Support networks. Now, you're living in the age of the social media. You know, it's always astounding to me. We got people engaging on TikTok and Instagram, and there's a lot of talk going on, and they talk about other people and things. But if you look at the topic of GBV and how it's communicated, I've got 2 master students working on that at the moment. But if you look for yourself, how many times is that topic ignored? It's not shared or commented on as much as other topics. Doesn't get the kind of following, doesn't get the kind of voice. You brilliant young people who are so creative on social media, make it your mission to start raising awareness and creating networks. Make it possible for people to comment and share and say something, because that's not happening enough. It's only when we get a scandal, when it's at, who's this guy now was let off the hook? Again, speak. No, long after now. No, who's this big one whose now case was, he got free of the charges? One of them, and there was also an international one. Yeah, it's off. Because we need, if we're going to be activists, we're going to do something, we're going to create support networks. How can each one of you create a support network for the cause? How can you raise awareness? How can you say, but this is what's happened? Comment. Let's be a bit more vocal and create networks that can actually support. Because we still have a lot of victim blaming in this country. Still victim blaming. How much did she drink? What did she wear? Why was she there? We still have it. I mean, we still have it. You're going to say to me, I must hurry up. Okay? So, mobilize. You need to change cultural norms. Now, remember, we also have this perception that, you know, we want to allocate it to race or to religion. It's all of us. It's all of us. I grew up in a very white town with a very Afrikaans background. And GBV was as prevalent there as it is in any of our other. So just because of our population composition, because the fact is of our 65 odd million population, the majority are black. That's proportionate. But it's representative. GBV is representative across all races, all cultures, all socioeconomic groupings. So it's not a poor black problem. It's an all race problem. So we also need to understand that we need to shift that mindset, that we realize that all of us have to make an impact in every group that we're from, that we mobilize for this change, that we work with men. We know we talk about men and boys a lot, but we start getting that mindset that the perpetrators need as much work and support as victims do. because they weren't born perpetrators. They were socialized to become perpetrators. And then we are continuing to cultivate that. My father was the only son. Okay, he had 4 sisters. He was the only son. And he was treated like he could walk on water because he was the son. And he believed that what he did was totally okay. Nobody told him it was not okay. This is where we come in. We say, if you're raising boys, you've got a brother, uncle, that we say we need to change these values, that we consider women as inferior to men. It's patriarchy. That is something we need to address in our families. We need to work with. That's why we need to hold perpetrators accountable. Not cover it up, not report it, not blame the victims. Hold the perpetrators accountable at every level for sexual harassment, for the comments they make. And we know that there are female perpetrators. We do know. It's just that they're such a much smaller percentage. They are there. There are men who are being raped. Now we haven't even touched on the LGBTQIA+. We haven't even touched homophobia and the discrimination that's happening there. That is happening. But each of us have to make a difference in holding perpetrators accountable in our friendship groups, in our families, in our homes. Just say, this is not okay. That we have a more unanimous voice about it wherever we are, whatever role we have, whatever influence we have. We are collaborating with NGOs and governments. And I believe that our NGOs need more support from us. We are supporting them with the Community Engagement Office. We are collaborating with, but like I say, it's still not enough. Let's do more. Let's see how much we can do more. Even if it's to raise awareness, even if it's to like and share their posts, even if it's to comment. Support the work that our NGOs are doing. Be there. Make yourself available. Whatever you can do, support the work that's being done. So we want to build safer and non-violent environments. Like I said to you, my students, I'm going to see just now, very excited about the Boys and Girls Club. We're going to look at how do we mobilize, how do we get students, all our stakeholders to participate in safer, non-violent environments. But I keep going back to the point that that's where we need to start, in the home environment, in the families, if we're going to do community work. And this is how we're going to create safe and non-violent. I'm so excited I met Polani, who's doing theater, and we're going to start experimenting with things and do street theater. Because that's been an intervention that's worked in very poor communities in many countries where you actually inform communities, for example, with street theater, where children enact. There are ways and means, is what I'm saying. And you are all creative in your own way. Let our creative minds go and see how can we, without relying on funding and other people, to say how can we in ourselves start creating safer environments, even if it's emotional safety, even if it's being non-judgmental, even if it's offering support in any way that we can. That we understand the power that each of us has to make a difference. Because ultimately we want to see the change. I'm saying to you, there's loads of publications, work, but no change. What is it going to take for us to start seeing the change? What is going to give us a long-term sustainable? And the sooner we realize that it's each one of us and whoever we can influence, whoever we can gather support from, that is what's going to make the change. So I'm appealing to all of you. Thank you for those of you who are here, who come to support this initiative. Thank you for the work you are doing. Thank you for being interested. Let's see how we can partner together more. We are available. We are accessible. Part of the UJ team. Let's see how we can do more of this. This community is endorsed. The community work is endorsed. It's real. It's there. So we're all able to do some impactful work so that we can maybe get together here, same place, same time next year and say, this is what we achieved. This is the impact we've had. Now we can actually see the outcome of what we do. Thank you for your time. And you know where to reach me.
Thank you so much, Prof. Corne. May we please give you another round of applause? And remember, like what Mr. Tepo said, you can still reserve your questions and your comments. After Ms. Cleo will open up for a Q&A. But okay, so I think what we will do, we'll just amend a little bit on the program because Prof has that class. Maybe we can just open up a Q&A for now. She did indicate that she has to leave immediately after her presentation. So we're going to open up for Q&A based on her presentation. The theme of her presentation was building communities against GBV. Is there anyone that has a comment or a question? Sipokazi will assist.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I'm audible. All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Your presentation was quite practical. Any person can actually hear, understand, and engage what you said. And I'm also interested in your paper, which I will consume after the session. However, you spoke about that not enough is done. I would submit that it's not an issue of not enough being done. It's a problem of collaboration and integration. I would qualify what I'm saying. We are currently involved in 3 communities in the province, which is Tembisa, Diepsloot, and Alex. There are stakeholders in the field of GBV who are also doing the same. However, what I've noticed over time is that when you get to community and you speak with stakeholders, you tell them that let's collaborate. And I would speak mostly for the stakeholders who are receiving funding from the Department of Social Development. It's somehow a challenge with them when it comes to collaboration because of statistics. So they need the attendance registers. Others will tell you that we cannot submit the same event. And then it becomes a problem because if we are all working in the field of GBV in the same community, when I do an awareness here at UJ today, tomorrow my colleagues from NICRO are coming to UJ to do an awareness. Who's going to attend the same, basically it's the same content that is going to be shared with different people. So I'm thinking it's largely a problem with collaboration and integration than it is a problem with not enough being done. Secondly, you also mentioned an issue around holding perpetrators accountable. We have a problem with culture, and not only in South Africa. In May, we were in Rwanda. The same things are happening across Africa, and you would see similar trends where culture is used to people would automatically revert to culture and say, culturally speaking. And when you come now and you want to challenge the status quo, obviously you become an outcast. But within the context of the family, then it becomes a problem because we are unable to hold the perpetrators and peddlers of violence because one, they are primarily the people who are providing for that family. Secondly, we do not have practical means to which we can say, now that your dad is arrested, here's sustenance, this is how you're going to survive. So it becomes a huge, we are not providing the practical solution after. And it is true that we need to also help the perpetrators in terms of rehabilitation and reintegration. But before we take them for rehabilitation, how do we best approach the system which seeks to sort of destabilize the status quo? Thank you very much.
Can I respond to your question or do you, okay. Yes, that's always been our problem that the NGOs work in silos and they compete for funding. That is a problem. That is why the efforts are not integrated. Within the National Strategic Plan, there was a pillar 3, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, which pillar worked just NGOs. It's a pillar in the National Strategic Plan where all the NGO, a lot of the NGOs, there were more than 300 of them, were part of that, which actually ideally should have created the opportunity for them to collaborate and not work in silos. But funding is a major issue because most of those NGOs run on a shoestring and most of them depend on that funding, and that is why they don't share resources and because they want to keep going. Although if you're looking at the report that was issued by the Commission for Gender Equality in 23 and even 24, it shows that where there was influence or there was success in communities, it was done by the NGOs. So that is why there's a need for us to see how can we remove the silos and how can we have the kind of collaboration among the NGOs. The second thing that you're saying is true, we know that as well. The perpetrators are often the victims. And we know that women remain in abusive relations because of the perpetrators. And that's also the cases why they are aware that children are being raped, that they're financially dependent on the perpetrators. So what you're saying is 100% correct. That is the challenge that we are facing. But what I'm also saying is that there are other communities that will also have been poor globally, where there have been interventions that worked, such as this example that I gave you of community theater with children acting out, with, for example, communities where the children start creating nursery rhymes to just start appealing to the conscience. That can happen, but then we do need to collaborate. We do need the community engagement office to facilitate all of this collaboration so that we can get there, because whatever you're saying is true and correct. That is where it's at the moment. And until we can facilitate this kind of collaboration, is why I say not enough is being done to get it to work. Too many isolated efforts. It's not being put together. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Prof, thank you very much for the information that you shared with us. I think I'm just going to start with the definition of gender-based violence, because I think it starts there. Because once you speak about gender-based violence, in most cases in our communities, we're speaking about women being abused. So what about the inclusion of the male part of the people? Well, where do we include them? Because I'm sure that every woman, when they bear their kids, they bear beautiful kids. No one is bearing a perpetrator or somebody's going to grow up and abuse people. So how are we including them into the topic? How are we including them into the solution of what's supposed to happen for gender-based violence to decrease around our communities? We do dignitary drives for girls. Like in most cases, they are ignored. The boy child is being ignored. There's less programs that focus on the male child than a girl child. So I think maybe we need to start with the definition of gender-based violence and femicide, and maybe include them also into the definition. And then another thing is that, oh yes, you also stated about the cultural norms and stuff. So I think if we can be able to have more boy-child programs that we can do, it will also be able to decrease this thing of growing numbers of gender-based violence. We need to include the boy child into the equation. We do not just have to call them the perpetrators. Some males are being abused, but it's not being said because obviously it's a shame for them to be saying that they're being abused and stuff. But maybe if we can include them into what the society is expecting them to do, then that can also help.
Thank you for that. In terms of the definition of gender-based violence, it refers to any kind of physical, emotional, psychological, verbal, and sexual abuse perpetrated against another person, not just the definition of women, person. Those persons include obviously children. So that definition is broad in scope. Also, often people think in terms of gender-based violence as the extreme where it results in femicide or just beating up or raping, but it's emotional, verbal, psychological abuse as well, because that is what changes the self-esteem and the mindset of the person, and that person then becomes more vulnerable. Because if a person is broken down emotionally and psychologically, that is when they end up in a position where they say, "But I deserve this, I caused this," because of the low self-esteem. So that is also very much included in the definition of gender-based violence. When it comes to changing those norms that you refer to, and somebody also mentioned the thing that we loosely throw around that term culture. Anything that we see or anything in the definition of gender-based, there's no culture to it. It's acts that have been socialized and integrated into our society at all levels, all races, all socioeconomic classes, and then we disguise it behind the term culture. There's nothing cultural about it. It is plain wrong. That is behavior that has been learned and adopted. So we are abusing the concept of misusing the word culture to disguise things that are simply unacceptable. It's blatantly unacceptable what is going on. So we mustn't misuse the term and hide it as culture. There's no culture to it. Questions before I run to class? Yes.
Hi everyone. I just want to comment on the culture part. There's this book that I read titled Engage Not All Fabulous by Katlego. He talked about him going to initiation school, and I think culture is one of the many contributors to GBV because of the things that men are taught growing up. So in his book, he talked about how going to initiation school, they're being taught that with their circumcised penises, they are going to use them to dominate women outside and inside of the bedroom, and with their penises, they will use them to break marriages. So I feel like that also contributes to GBV, because if you are going to be taught about that, then that's what you are going to base your whole personality on, if I can put it like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, and also I came across this TikTok this morning where a guy talked about how, and I quote, pedophiles want to identify as snaps, if I'm not being mistaken. They basically, it's them saying that they grew up having been attracted to young kids, and they want to be recognized by the government. So that really disturbed me, because like, how do you as a 40-year-old look at an 18-year-old and think that I'm attracted to that person and it's okay for me to undress them and sleep with them? So I feel like these are one of the main contributors to GBV. I just wanted to raise that.
Thank you for that. We are talking also about the general moral decline of our society, where things that are abhorrent are seen as acceptable. Remember, your average child rape victim is 5 years old, perpetrated also by people a lot older. That they and pedophiles, as you know, and I don't know if you know, but really can be rehabilitated. That's not something that we can fix, that we can counsel, that we can, once they are pedophiles, unfortunately, I've not seen many successes with those. And those people believe that what they are doing is acceptable. This is what's ongoing. So yes, we do need to change cultures. But you referring, and this is what we know, the initiation, for example, is a typical, I think it actually is Xhosa, or that initiation. Yes, there's a cultural aspect, but that also comes to the devalue, the patriarchy, the subordination of women. Yes, in that aspect, yes, we need to have cultural changes. We need to change certain traditions and perceptions. But if we're talking about a concept, for example, such as rape culture, it's not culture. So we need to draw the lines about where do we position it within a cultural framework and upbringing and practices and traditions, and where do we position it in terms of terminology that we throw around to justify things that are unacceptable. So there's a lot to talk about. It's a complex topic. But as long as we're talking and we're doing, we move that to doing, we'll get somewhere. Yes.
I also think that one of the ways that we can raise awareness when it comes to this is going to schools and talking to young girls, because I feel like manipulation and coercion are also one of the contributors to GBV, because rape is not forced penetration only. There's old people who sleep with young kids,
Yes.
and they say there's, I don't know the exact word for this, but for example, they give them money and say,
Grooming.
"Bana bara daddy," they groom them. Yeah. So I think one of the things that we can talk about, how we can raise awareness when it comes to this, is going to schools and actually teaching young girls about this, because it's normalized in communities that it's okay for a kid to date an older person. You know, it's no longer seen as taboo. You know,
Also
so
remember, we've got blessers now.
true.
We haven't spoken about that because we had so little time. But let me just remind you that during COVID-19 lockdown, there were 941 girls as young as 10 and 11 who gave birth to babies. Okay? 10 and 11 years old. Don't tell me that was consensual sex, and don't tell me those were boyfriends. Those were children raped at home. 941. That's besides the other 23,000 teenagers who gave birth to babies during lockdown. So let's just not underestimate that fact that it's happening in the family. Perpetrators are known to the victims. They are the fathers, the stepfathers, the uncles, the brothers. That is why I said, let's us as a community focus on family, because that's where it's all going very wrong. You're going to have to excuse me because I've got a class of students who wants to carry on working on Boys and the Girls Club. So before they lose their excitement, I need to get to class. But you know where I am. I'm on UJ website. I'm fairly accessible. I'm on LinkedIn and whatever. So if ever you want to ask, please feel welcome to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Corne. We really appreciate you. And I think her opening remarks and closing remark was intimate partner violence starts at home. So we should all work together, build networks to create awareness about this issue in our country. We're going to tweak the program again because our next speaker, Dr. Shahida, also has another engagement, and it's of national interest, obviously, for an upcoming radio interview she has regarding GBV. But I also want to share with you her profile, just to give you an overview of who Dr. Shahida is. Dr. Shahida Omar has over 35 years of experience in the space of GBV. She's actually the director at Teddy Bear Foundation. How many of you are aware of Teddy Bear Foundation? Awesome. So her qualifications, okay, they're showing on the screen. She has a BA in social work, master's in mental health, diploma in marriage guidance and counseling, forensic assessment, Her doctoral thesis was focused on young sex offenders, GBV courses, also at Jobkins University, UNICEF, and DSD. So Dr. Shahida, as we indicated, has worked at various institutions in numerous capacities. Just to summarize, she developed the professional standard offered by Teddy Bear Foundation. Her vast spectrum of experience and knowledge are regularly called upon for panels by the media and to mark thesis as an expert witness and often consulted for challenging and controversial cases for law enforcement agencies. I mean, this morning we were talking with her about the recent case that is happening in South Africa. I'm sure you're aware of the young man that was allegedly, murdered by the mother, and also the other case of a mother who has actually murdered two of her kids. So you can just imagine her day-to-day operations. Shahida's insight into the psyche of child abuse is phenomenal. She has mentored and trained numerous professionals in the field of child abuse. She presents at workshops, national and international conferences. She's a president of the SAPSAC committee on the accreditation committee for diversion, part of the National Trafficking Task Team, and Presidential Steering Committee. And we're very excited because we saw some NGOs that are here focusing on human trafficking. In conclusion, I'm sure you can Google her. Shahida grew up in the apartheid era with its enormous childhood challenges. This sense of community nurtured in Shahida, hence she values and sharing and caring about what is happening in the country. Can we please give her a round of applause?
Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. Universal greetings to one and all. I just want to say thank you to the organizers, Lebogang, and to the people that are here. It shows your commitment and concern for the national pandemic that we are currently faced with. I think Lebogang spoke to the Jaden Lee case, and just looking at the most news-breaking incident this last night of the 4-year-old from the Westbury community, where the mother had recorded the child inserting mandrax and putting setting it light and ingesting the drug himself and two other adults, capturing that on video and making it viral. So that just speaks to the current trends that we are faced with. I want to just mention that if we look at gender-based violence and its impact on society as a whole, looking at the number of deaths of children by adults, drives them, what propels them to commit these heinous crimes and show no remorse of it. From March, we saw a baby, a 2-year-old toddler was sold to a Sangoma. We know that a teenager was poisoned by the mother. And a teenager was arrested for the infant being shot. And these are just some of the examples. It's horrific. I know one needs deep thinking after listening to these kind of graphic details of what we currently face with. I think Prof. Cornet spoke about the intrafamilial abuse, child pregnancies that we've seen. And it's not only child on child, it is obviously based within the familial context, blessers, educators, and significant others in the environment. So just to show you, when I speak about turning the tide against gender-based violence in South Africa, looking at the prevalence and lethality, how toxic, how poisonous it is. And we know this is, I'm speaking to the converted here. that every 3 hours, and that's an underestimation of women being murdered, plundered, and killed and brutalized. And of course, the abuse that they suffer within the domestic context. And of course, we fall in the top 5 for femicide and rape, unfortunately. It's not something that we can fly our flag high and say we're proud about this. And it affects those that are living in the most disadvantaged, poor, rural-based, part of marginalized groups. Like we're looking at the LGBTQIA+, migrants, your illegal immigrants, and your sex workers. We do not refer to them as prostitutes, but sex workers. They're generating an income, and we cannot judge people because the reality is that, desperate times call for desperate measures, drastic measures. Looking at the economic and social cost here, we can see that GBV has a direct impact on economic participation. It costs the country billions annually in lost productivity, the healthcare, policing, and legal services. And under healthcare, I want to speak to maternal mortality, infant mortality in relationships. We find that the indirect victims are usually children. Survivors face long-term psychological trauma. The physical wounds may disappear, but the psychological wounds are not visible to the naked eye, and they are so deep that scarring, the emotional scarring, lingers long after, impacting not only on their behaviors, but even on their relationships and their pattern of parenting, but also the stigma and social isolation that they suffer as a result of it. Intergenerational effects, you can see where children are exposed to gender-based violence as victims or witnesses, often experience developmental, educational, and mental health setbacks. We find that they are subjected to behavioral disturbances, and its impacts on their brain, the development of the brain. We find that the neuro-linguistic pathways, that there's reconfiguration of the wiring. So it's firing, wiring, and reconfiguration, which predisposes them to long-term implications of behavioral disorders, behavioral disturbances. We find that some of these children, resort to self-destructive, self-defeating behavioral patterns, where there's self-mutilation, victimization of others, and also not only victimization, but you're looking at substance abuse. So all these self-destructive behavioral patterns that can impact as a result of the child belonging to a context where there's intimate partner violence. If we look at the conviction rates of gender-based violence, you can see 91.9% in femicide prosecutions where that 91.9%. So there is definitely progression. There's more activism, more accountability. But if we look at that, that's in femicide, hey? But if we look at intimate partner femicide, you can see 92.2% conviction rate in sexual offenses, 74.8%. This is just to show you the trauma, the impact of how gender-based violence, impacts on victims, on society, on people. And I think that's just to understand that, unfortunately, it has devastating effects. Now, if we look at the fact that the reality, the harsh reality, we know that we have the highest rate of femicide, rape, intimate partner violence in the world. And I'm just repeating this because I think it's important for us to understand that this is underreported and underfrequently reported. We know that many people, many females, women, individuals are killed, and it's not even brought to the attention of the authorities. But we also need to understand that there's secondary victimization, secondary trauma, that these victims that come forward and report it, the responses that are elicited at police stations, within the police law enforcement structure, even in courtrooms, and even within their communities, they're often shamed, named, and blamed for what has happened. The lack of belief, the lack of support, the stigma, the humiliation that they are subjected to. They have not been good wives, they haven't been good spouses, good partners, and that is obviously something that holds many women back from coming forward and making a disclosure and seeking support, so breaking that silence. Because even when they go to law enforcement, they often frowned upon and say it's a domestic matter. They need to sort it out. Tomorrow they'll kiss and make up. Yes, that may be the reality, but the reality is that that victim is asking for help in the here and now. And we need to understand that gender-based violence doesn't just harm individuals, it destroys families. Like I spoke about with children, it weakens our economy, our national development goals. So if we look at destruction of families, we look at the incidence of maternal filicide. Here we see so many women resorting to murdering their children. And what are the reasons behind that? It's altruistic filicide, that because of the abuse of the intimate partner violence, the mother is going to kill her children. We've had many cases like that, poisoning them, shooting them, and taking her own life, because the belief is that I'm going to help my children. This relationship is going to destroy all of us. So for the benefit of all, that's altruistic filicide. Then you find the revenge filicide, where in the relationship, the mother is trying to get back at the partner, and that's the only way that she can get back at the partner. So I think that's something we need to also be aware of. But also, I think what is currently very worrisome is the mental illnesses, often undiagnosed, untreated. If we look at the Jocelyn Smith case, where this mother was on substances, alcohol, drugs, and unfortunately, she was suffering from depression and other behavioral disturbances. The treatment, the ongoing support or interventions were not followed through. And we're finding that a lot, that there's gross pathology where you find filicide with pathological filicide, where the mother is not in a sound frame of mind, has lost her mind, has emotionally collapsed, and resorts to these drastic, catastrophic means of destroying the family. So just to understand that gender-based violence doesn't just end with two people. It impacts on families, it impacts on the communities, it impacts and the vicarious trauma, because how other children are receiving these signals and messaging, their concerns, their fears, their anxieties escalating. Will my mother do that to me? Will my father do that to me? So I think this is what we also need to focus on, because looking at the future generations growing up with escalated levels of anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder, I think this is a huge challenge. So gender-based violence, something that I want to say that, and I think Prof. Cornet spoke about communities and families getting involved, that it's not just my business, it's not your business, it's our business. So here we're saying stop, but I want to say to everybody, spot it and stop it, that we all have a responsibility. If we look at Ubuntu, and if we look at this case of the 4-year-old in Westbury, the pastor came to the rescue, got JMPD involved, and the child was removed. I'm not saying that's, the panacea or the cure for the situation, but to remove the child who was in need of care and risk, and who knows what could have happened to this child at 4 years, already exposed to drugs and toxic relationships, and normalizing such horrific things is totally unacceptable. I think just to speak to the National Strategic Plan, Prof. Cornet touched on that, and I want to say that we've seen some positive movement. I've been involved from its inception in the interim steering committee and then the national steering committee on gender-based violence, six pillars that were developed in the process. So we know that new legislation was passed in 2021, addressing and strengthening protection orders, management of cases, where previously a lot of cases fell through the cracks. We saw that in the total shutdown movement where people, activists stood up fighting for that kind of recourse. And a lot of loopholes have been addressed, but that doesn't mean that it's completely squeaky clean. There are so many challenges. We still have a long way to go. The other thing is the Tutuzela care centers. I was just talking yesterday to the National Directorate of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Bonnie Baramo, and she said that there are now 66 Tutuzela care centers, which is a one-stop shop or center for any kind of abuse. So it's multidisciplinary, law enforcement, everybody, healthcare, psychosocial, NGOs within these Tutuzela care centers. GBVF Response Fund, as I'm actually a board member of the GBVF Response Fund, and as you can see, 160 million rand has already been spent, but more money has been spent. I cannot give you the correct or accurate figure right now, but as we speak, a lot of the rural areas have been assisted in setting up facilities in responding to domestic violence, to gender-based violence. And currently, as we speak, there's a development of the legacy project. Now, the legacy project addresses the violence in schools, and what we are focusing specifically on is child pregnant learners, children birthing children, not teenage pregnancies. It's 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And according to the Children's Act, a person is an adult at the age of 18. So these are children. They are not ready for these milestones. I mentioned earlier about infant mortality, maternal mortality, their health being compromised, status being compromised, attrition rate, their mental health. If we just look at their mental health, their coping mechanisms, the lack of support structures, abandonment, rejection by family members. So this is all part of what the Legacy Project is focusing on. A lot of programs are currently running at schools, and Teddy Bear Foundation is quite instrumental in that. We've developed content, material on the facilitation of support groups, and we are running groups in the in Soshanguve, Hammanskraal, so Tshwane region, in the eastern corridor, in the western corridor, in Soweto, and in Johannesburg. But we know that as we speak, that there are many gains made. Unfortunately, they're not enough. So here's the breakdown of the National Strategic Plan and the pillars. Pillar 1 is accountability and coordination. Pillar 2, prevention and rebuilding social cohesion. Pillar 3 looks at justice, safety, and protection. Pillar 4, care, response, and support. Pillar 5, as you can see, economic power, very important, where a lot of effort and funds are being challenged into empowering women's groups, women's small business, women's development. We've made some strides, but we have a long way to go. And pillar 6 is research and information management. So if you look at the key challenges since the declaration of GBV as a national pandemic, here you can see that, unfortunately, implementation has been uneven across the provinces, the local authorities, and government departments. And this, the lack of budget alignment, because the budgets that have been allocated, the funds are not meeting the demands and the needs on the ground. And it's inconsistent, delayed, it's actually not helpful at all. But we also know that another thing is the inadequate coordination because if we look at the gap between national and local government, there seems to be a breakdown. There isn't a breakdown in communication. There isn't a mutual reciprocal process of engagement. And unfortunately, many of you are here from NGOs, civil society organizations, the people on the cold front doing the hard work, the foot soldiers are the civil society organizations. And of course, they are the people that are doing the specialized work. That is actually the responsibility of the state, who are the key decision makers. And then something that we are fighting with and continue. Yesterday, that was my meeting with the National Department of Public Prosecutions earlier in April. In February, we met with the Minister of Justice, a round table, and then we met with Advocate Shamla Batoy, the head of National Department of Public Prosecutions, around the low conviction rate of children who are victims of violence. We did a study from 2019 to 2024, and out of just under 6,000 children, 15% of those cases were finalized. However, 4% of those cases, only 4% received a conviction. So what happened to all the other perpetrators? So that's the kind of ongoing engagement, and we are finding that even with your intimate partner violence to domestic violence, lack of DNA follow-up, backlog in the DNA, crime kits being misplaced, lost, and of course law enforcement being undercapacitated, understaffed, under-resourced, under-skilled. So when they engage with victims or survivors of abuse, their responses are inappropriate, insensitive, often subjecting the victim to secondary trauma, blaming them, naming them, shaming them. It's their fault. And this deters victims from coming forward. So just looking at that, understanding that the lack, and also that we don't have a standardized GBV data system. Then looking at the direct traumatization here, we can see that gender and relationship power inequity, and how that impacts on psychological distress, and also children are marginalized, and the power dynamics there make them easier targets of rape, sexual abuse, and also witnessing intimate partner violence. But see how all of this is interrelated, interconnected, the intersectionality, where when a victim has been subjected to abuse, sometimes they will find themselves repeatedly in an abusive situation because of the dynamic of power and control. They feel, okay, I'm going to do better next time. I'm not going to let it happen. Unfortunately, it's not like that. There's more violence, more abuse, and the toxic masculinity continue because they gravitate towards partners, or they attract partners that are initiators of violence. So I wanted to just bring this to your attention to show what actually happens. Challenges on the ground, and here is, we have pieces of legislation, policy in the world. Unfortunately, it's implementation thereof. If policies are not translated into action, dealing with works. And I've mentioned already, if we look at the rural areas, the under-resourced, the historically disadvantaged communities, survivors and victims continue to struggle to access services. We have working chats on the different pillars, and I sit on pillar 2, which is prevention, and pillar 4, care, response, and support. And we'll get, on the chats where throughout the country, the mother has been raped or beaten up to a pulp, and she's got these children, and she's now outside with no belongings, with no shelter, and what does she do? She doesn't know who to go, where to get support. So you can just see, and of course, if a person in that destitute situation in a rural area, they have to commute kilometers to access any kind of support. Even enlisting the support of a police officer, they have to commute distances. And then we've already talked about the coordination between the different tiers of government, both from a local to a national level, and the funding challenges and the delays in, and I think just to bring it to everybody's attention, Gauteng province has been really struggling with funding from DSD, and many organizations have had to shut down, and there's been a whole legal process where the matter has gone to the High Court as well, where because of the delay of funding, people have had to shut down. I know we were donated 3 vehicles from an organization in Pretoria because they closed shop completely and they didn't know what to do with their vehicles. So just to bring that to the fore to show that unfortunately it is a huge challenge. Even accessing shelters, for women that are in desperate need is not easy. Yesterday I was looking for a shelter for a female whose house had burned down and a victim of domestic violence. And it was so difficult. And it was about who you know and pulling strings and asking, calling in favors. We spoke about the centralized data system, and unfortunately, there isn't a smooth flow or smooth functioning of the systems working with GBV. And you cannot be successful or effective with broken systems. So looking at, the individual, community, institutional, and policy level, the ecological framework, you can see individuals often, I'm going to start from the bottom up, the isolation of individuals, lack of safe spaces, like we said, where do they go to when they faced with an immediate resource or support. And then I think also looking at access to nutrition, internet access, having access to be able to contact resources as well, and the mental health concerns which we spoke about, the depression, the anxiety, personality disorders, taking all of that into account. And of course, as far as community is concerned, we're seeing an increasing incidence of gender-based violence, child marriages, domestic violence, and what we're seeing more now, a prevalence of cyber violence, cyber bullying, cyber abuse. So I'm not going to continue. I'll just talk to the institutional issues here, where I mentioned earlier about high attrition of school children or the dropouts and with child pregnant learners. Last year we had from one school in the Eastern Corridor, 5 children in 1 week completed suicide, completed suicide. And 4 of the girls were pregnant, and the one was a male learner who had impregnated his girlfriend. So when his girlfriend completed and committed suicide, he did the same. So you can just see the desperation, the feeling of being trapped. There's no exit out of this, that this is the only way out, and these are children. Give that to your attention. We've talked about policy, and I think the coordination, collaboration, implementation is something that still needs to work. We need to get all our government departments working in harmony with each other, because the pieces of legislation are excellent, but they're working in isolation. They're not engaging with the different government departments, so sometimes they do not speak to each other. The way forward, so what must we do? What can we do? Of course, funding is something that is critical, and the president declared it as a national pandemic. We are applauding for that. We have the first summit on gender-based violence, the second summit on gender-based violence, but a lot more has to be allocated to this cause. And working in coordination, collaboration with civil society to strengthen those relationships. And particularly the women-led organizations at grassroots, because they are the people that are the gatekeepers and are closest to the victims, to the challenges, to the hardships and harsh realities on the ground. And something that is critical, we cannot move away from that. You know, intervention, crisis intervention, reactive, yes, we have to. But the one thing that we have to work on very hard on is prevention, because we know that prevention is better than cure, and that we could certainly, if we join our hands together, the educational institutions, your tertiary institutions, your employment places, your faith-based communities, healthcare facilities, recreational centers, I think certainly we would be more, that is more systemic approach to prevention, not just it's inclusive of everybody. So there's a better opportunity. And of course, we have to implement parenting programs, because children are born, but they don't come with parenting manuals, and parents don't know how to manage. And with economic hardship and death, it's you know, their coping mechanisms collapse, and obviously the outcome. Lastly, I think most importantly, we must put our ears to the ground, and it's deep with listening. It's not about judging or making a decision on behalf of that person, the victim or the survivor. It's actually listening to them and hearing what would they like to see happen, where do they want to go, what are the next steps, but also providing them with guidelines on what is available, the referral pathways, the legislation, the information around protection orders, making them aware of their rights, their responsibilities. So their voices, their stories must guide the person that is responding, the first responders. In concluding, I would like to say that, you know, South Africa's response continues to face systemic challenges, as we've discussed already, in the resource allocation, implementation, and survivor-centered justice, because we know that, you know, justice delayed is justice denied, and so many victims or survivors remain in the criminal justice system for years before they, you know, the case is finalized or to give them closure. So moving forward, I think we need to have greater political will, sustained investment. It's not only financial or economic investment, but equipped and skilled paid people, resources, personnel, and getting the community engaged, because who are the best informants or experts on the community members themselves? So the inclusion of civil society, said women-led grassroots organizations, and everybody else. You know, we mustn't let the national strategic plan just be a paper promised thing. It's got to be a lived reality that can address the needs of vulnerable populations in South Africa. Come to the end, I think I just want to end with the sentence that we need to honor the memory of every woman, every individual, and every child that we have lost to this violence, not with words, but with action. Let us ensure that one day soon, no individual in South Africa or woman or child in South Africa will live in fear simply because he or she exists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, as a student volunteer, because we are so, or rather, let me say, we are exposed to these areas where you find that there are teenagers and kids in school that are educated about GBV, but they don't receive as much education because it might be from your LO teacher, but so like there's no clarity to it. As student volunteers, what can we do? Because we are with these students like on a daily basis, every day. So yeah, that's my question.
So thank you for that. And what you're describing is a first responder where your peers are coming forward and reaching out to you. So it's also important that you ensure that you receive appropriate and adequate training in on ensuring that you actually listen to them and are aware of the referral pathways as well. Because there's a directory of services, and to enhance your networks and immediate response to ensure that they are not re-victimized. If they leave your contact with you, that they'll be subjected to re-victimization. So to be aware of that and also to inform them as a first responder, it's initial containment and directing them on navigating positive way, but also ensuring that they get the community support in the training. We actually have developed a lot of content, but I think Professor Paul mentioned that gender-based violence, sensitivity, anti
Good morning once again. I think your presentation was quite thought provoking. However, my challenge now is that we have issues when it comes to law enforcement. We have police officers who are not conversant on legislation. You would speak about the Domestic Violence Act as it has been amended. And now we're expecting people, they are referred to as law enforcement agencies, to enforce a law that they do not understand, which is quite a problem. Secondly, they usually try to adjudicate or mediate or on cases when the victim comes to open a case of GBV or whatnot. Police officers, you would find them trying to sit them down to facilitate sort of a discussion. And also another problem is within the NPA. Recently, for example, just yesterday, a friend of mine who opened a case in Breads in July received a message that investigation, then there was the case number, case and docket has been closed, withdrawn by senior public prosecutor, and the reason for withdrawal is that null prosecutor. And we are speaking about issues of GBV, that a senior prosecutor would withdraw cases. And how do we then assist the victims in the process? Because the victims are expected to go into the same environment where they are victimized. For example, in this context, because you mentioned that sometimes the trauma continues in courts and in police stations, you have a court or a senior prosecutor who withdraws a GBV case of a teacher, because I'm speaking about a teacher who was victimized by another teacher in the school. For some time, she refused to go to work, but ultimately she has to go to work to the very environment where the perpetrator is. Nothing has been done to the perpetrator by either the Department of Education as well as the SAPS, and now it's the NPA. So how do we navigate this when our efforts to curb the scourge of GBV continues and is enabled by the very institutions that are supposed to assist us deal with this problem? Thank you.
Thank you for that very important question, because that is our ongoing battle with the systems that are supposed to be protecting and preventing further harm. They are actually perpetuating that cycle of violence. And the only way we as a civil society organization has found some recourse to escalate the matters. So even if it's a senior prosecutor, you have to escalate it to the chief prosecutor, and the matter has to continue. We've even taken matters right up to the national level from the NPA. And I think even as far as police is concerned, we've identified, and that was one of the things in our study, we identified the lack of skill of law enforcement, where you say, that the way they respond to survivors and victims is so toxic and harmful and degrading and humiliating. And that also, so we've continue. I don't say we've that it's a battle won, because the war is won, but the battle continues. So we escalated to the shift commander, then to the shift station commander, then to the cluster commander. So there are channels we must not give up. My daily mantra I said to Prof. Cornelius, wake up, show up, and never give up. Because if we give up, we definitely failing people in our communities. So stand up, speak out, and break that silence. Hold people accountable. And if you feel like, you look at the pillars, the 6 pillars, and looking at criminal justice. So where courts are failing, there's people like Advocate Praise Kambula, who's in charge of that. So there are people on those different pillars. You can Google and connect with those people for them to mobilize action. It's a national, and all of you can become members of the 6 pillars. So please, if you see yourself working in care, response, and support, or you see yourself working in the prevention sector, or you see yourself working with the criminal justice system, wherever you are, if there's a fit for purpose, you are welcome to join that forum. We meet regularly on a monthly basis, and there's a lot of action happening on that, because there's a lot of opportunities for networking as well, where like at 11 o'clock at night, I get a call, a distress WhatsApp in a different province, and they're asking for help in helping, and then we mobilize action. So I think it's important that you try and access those different platforms. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Shaida. I just wanted to find out about the Tutuzela centers that you mentioned, the kind of services that they provide for the survivors or the victims of gender-based violence, and the accessibility to the center.
So if we look at the closest Tutuzela care center here in Gauteng, it's in Thabiseng at Kasani Hospital. And as I said yesterday, I was informed that there are now nationwide 66 Tutuzela care centers. So in a Tutuzela care center, there would be investigating officers, law enforcement would be there, there would be health, forensic doctors would be there, civil society organizations providing psychosocial support, and there would be somebody from the fort as well. So that is a function and responsibility of the Tutuzela care centers, centralized into the community. But there's also the Kusuleka centers under the banner of social development. Those are shelters. Tutuzela care centers are not shelters, but it's looking at the reporting, management, and further of cases of gender-based violence, other forms of abuse. Yeah, anybody, for the students, if you have to, anyone, it's obviously at no cost, and it falls under the ambit of the National Prosecutions Authority. The Tutuzela care centers fall under NPA. The Kusuleka centers fall under DSB, they're different sources. Good morning, Professor. The issues that you're talking about here, the one that affects the family, which is gender-based violence, I think it's an issue that has started from long time ago. And if you can look at the families, it's all about the power. Today, we can say it's a culture, but nowadays it's about the power. If someone has the money and the power, and then they become the dictators within the families. And the most important thing, we should start changing our society within the family. Because even if there can be an NGO within the community, if people don't know about it, if people don't know about their services, if you don't have ambassadors within the community, this thing is gonna fail. That's why it's failing, because it's like, yes, it is there in the paper. People only know about it when they go to the police station, and by that time it's too late. It is too late. Prevention is better than cure. We need to educate people about this, their rights. They should know even before they go to the police station. And I just want to talk about the boys. As mothers, we tend to neglect boys. Like if we have these children, we bring them closer to us, but we forget about the boys, that they have a feelings, and sometimes they want to be loved just like any other children. And like myself, I've got two girls and one boy. I'm very close to all of them, even the boy, because all of them, they've got the same weaknesses. So I think boys were neglected. Boys like within the society and the family, a boy's child is like they grow up in the way that they feel like they have to protect themselves. That's why they are taking, when they grow up, and then they're taking advantage of every situation. We need to rectify that mistake, that a boy is like a child. Thank you.
If I can just respond to that, I think it's identified the gendered stereotypes, the gendered values that we've inherited over centuries. It's not a new or a unique phenomenon. Culturally, historically, politically as well, if you look at the political landscape of the apartheid era and the patriarchal system, deeply entrenched. But you raised something very important, and I always say, who is actually mothering the children? Who is socializing the children, whether it's the boy child or the girl child? And what kind of preferential treatment is being provided? And I think Prof. Cornet spoke to that in the Afrikaans culture, but I can also speak to that in the Indian culture, where the boy child, and I think it so exists, it prevails, is given preferential treatment. Boys are not expected to do household chores, they're not expected to cook. Girls are expected to do all of that. As girls, when we were growing up, coming back from school and religious studies in the afternoon, we were expected to do household chores and cook, and we were punished if we didn't do that timeously and properly. And I think it's also socializing mothers on how to mother their children, that the norms that we transfer and the way we actually share our values, where boys are definitely treated differently to girls. And we need to break down those stereotypes. And you say something else, you said something else as well. Inclusion, where leaving no child behind, whether it's girls or whether it's boys. If we look at the African Charter on the rights of children, that is the focus on leaving no child behind. And South Africa is a signatory to the UNCRC and the African Charter. And in our programs, in our outreach work that we go out to schools, we look at roles and we have engaged with the sexual reproductive health and rights programs, where we discuss roles and responsibilities and breaking down those myths and misconceptions and the stereotypes. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc, for your presentation. So my question is, understanding that you're working with communities, right? And the essence of this initiative is to also provide that kind of awareness and education, especially to the nightlife sector. And we find it a bit challenging into breaking into that kind of an industry, especially on stakeholders, right? Maybe if you could, since you have worked in communities, provide a little bit of a approach that you use, especially when you are speaking more onto these kind of initiatives or projects that are centered around gender-based violence. I think that would also provide us some sort of a leeway that we can, um, take into getting these people, because we are really, people do want to, they do inform us that they would love to participate in this kind of initiative, but they do not mostly pitch up in this, and that's one of our struggle. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think what we need to understand is, and I'm just picking up on the last question, is about, and so what do we do with the children that we work with in our different interventions? As Lebogang mentioned, my PhD was on young sex offenders, and these were children 12 and younger who were instrumental in rape and attempted penetration, and was orchestrated behind closed doors under shroud of secrecy, and it was premeditated. So when we do our outreach work with children at schools, in our SRHR programs, we analyze values and attitudes, and we look at rights and responsibilities. And when we speak to both the girls and boys, because we have a heterogeneous group, and we ask, there are stipulated questions. So what does no mean? When somebody says no, what does that actually translate into? You'll ask a girl that question, and she'll say no means no. That you don't go beyond this. It's a refusal, and it's my right, and you stop there. And when you ask a boy that, some of the responses elicited are, oh, that's just a tease. The girl is asking to be pursued. She took a gift from me. She accepted the gift from me, so I can pursue her, and it's okay. Even if she shows resistance, it's my right to do what I want to do. So we break down those, misinterpretations, misunderstandings, and I think that something that we also do with analyzing values and attitudes is, so we would break it down for the males and for the females. So we would ask the male, so is it okay for a male to have multiple partners? And the responses are usually, they'll say, of course, it's okay. The masculinity, the macho-ness. And then you ask those males, same boys, so is it okay for the girls to have multiple partners? And there's this definite refusal and acceptance of that kind of sexuality. So, it's again breaking down those values and interpretation of values, where the males often see themselves in a more privileged situation. And when we try and instill empathy. So you're asking me, Tsepo, we try and work with a lot of empathy. We say, okay, so now you have to wear the hat of a girl. You're not the boy now in this context. And what will your response be if a boy does that to you? So it's about also instilling empathy, putting them in the shoes of that victim, understanding what it would feel like. So, it's about transforming those thought processes. It's a lot of work. It's not a once-off session, because we want to instill empathy, but also where they've committed these offenses, that they need to acknowledge responsibility, display regret and remorse for their actions, and how can they mitigate it or remediate it moving forward in their relationships.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And as you shared your mantra with us, we'll definitely adopt it. I think doctors said we should wake up, make up, show up, and never give up as we go back to our communities. We are going to take a comfort break, strictly for 15 minutes, and then we will come back for the second session. We still have two more speakers and more engagement. And then another announcement, Ms. Nkabinde Faith, your driver's license was found by one of our volunteers. You can just come to the registration table, then we will give you your driver's license. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is adjourned. We'll be back 15 minutes on the dot. Thank you so much.
Online, so um okay, there's a small change in the announcement, so it's only 5 minutes comfort break and then we reconvene. Oh, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. All right.
Stop taking meeting notes and let ClickUp AI Note Taker do it for you. It allows you to focus on your meetings, not your notes.
Said I must do a sound check. Okay. Okay, enjoy class. Bye bye.
It's not as nice as the camera we are using.
Yeah, yesterday there was a debate at level 5 and the pictures of this.
Yeah, I also told him, I don't like this camera. I prefer to use that other camera.
The one from the quality from this TV. This camera arrived when it displays here, but when it displays here, it doesn't just.
It's not our camera. No, for low. So we are just borrowing it because we are using all our cameras. We are borrowing the camera because we are using these cameras.
Because they're using this camera. All the photos.
So you said, yeah, okay. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the second session, and thank you so much for adhering to the time. If you look at the program, we are left with two speakers, and our next speaker will be talking to us about collective responsibility in the nightlife sector, partnering for a safer Gauteng. But I just want to share with you the profile. Our next speaker is Theo Budive Lushaba. She is the director in the Gauteng Liquor Board under the Department of Economic Development. She heads the Client Relations Management and Media Liaison Unit. She comes with a wealth of business and governance experience in the liquor trading sector, which she articulates into education and awareness programs such as today, as per the needs arising and leading to social ills that require attention to a provincial level. Ms. Theo is regarded as an expert in liquor trading, education, and compliance matters. Her strength lies in measuring the impact of alcohol on individuals, working environments, and communities at large. May we please give Ms. Theo a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It is afternoon. Yes. Yeah. How's everybody? Are you good? Are you good? Are you good? Are you good, everyone? Okay, it's always good to do some check-in so that you are aware who you're going to be talking to. As I have been introduced, my name is Cleo Budibe-Lushaba, and yes, I work for the Gauteng Liquor Board. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the organizers, Tsepo, Lebu, Fiona, and everyone else. Of course, I can understand there's a lot of people that work behind the curtains to get this kind of event up. So thank you so much. And thank you for involving the Gauteng Liquor Board. Of course, as the Gauteng Liquor Board, as you all might know, we are the regulators of the liquor trade industry. A little bit of manufacturing, but only for the micro manufacturers, but largely within the trading. So usually when I start, I want to put a disclaimer and say we do not manufacture. Sometimes to people when you say liquor board, they think you're talking about SAB. It's not SAB. So there's no alcohol in my car. So laugan kappa unkappa fella out of, you know, so there's nothing in my boot. Okay. Well, there's a lot of things, but not alcohol. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's who we are. My responsibility for today And I should actually acknowledge everyone else that is in the room. Whenever people gather together like this, for me, it tells me there is a need that we are seeing, and we are intentionally and deliberately wanting to come up with solutions for that. So definitely, I applaud you for that. And just setting time aside. I mean, we are all so busy. I noticed the last two speakers had to speak and kind of immediately go. So it just shows how busy everyone is. So thank you so much to everyone for coming through. So as I was saying, my responsibility for today, very simple, but very complex at the same time. Being the regulators of the liquor trade in Gauteng, how then do we collectively, with yourselves as various institutions and institutions that are not represented here today, how do we then ensure that our nightlife economy is safe? Not only safe, but we do realize the importance thereof. And maybe at this point, I need to take a step or two back and just mention that the Gauteng Liquor Board is within the Department of Economic Development. That is the Gauteng Liquor Board, Consumer Affairs, Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, etc., etc. And I'm consciously mentioning that so that you are aware that before we regulate, our core is at developing the economy. Our core is at creating jobs. So anything that says employment, anything that says jobs, entrepreneurship, GDP, fiscus, whatever you name it, that's where we come in. So we ensure that business carries on. It could be at an informal level, or keep it and whatnot outside of school, or liquor trading, or B&B, whatever it is at our heart, because as government, we are very aware that we cannot create jobs by ourselves. Even if we wanted to, you can imagine how much we would have to pay. Yeah, just the other day I was talking to our interns, they're about to leave. And of course they would want to stay. And I said, imagine if we adopted all the interns that we have on an annual basis. Already as government, our system, as you all keep hearing, is bloated. And besides, we'd be blocking opportunities for other potential interns that also want experience. But Anyukwalapo for today, this is where I am. So before, okay, I guess I drive remotely. I keep touching the screen. I don't want to press too many times. Can I not use that? Okay, I'll keep talking anyway. The slides will catch up with me. There we go. I have done a little bit of introduction and I'll leave it at that. Of course, you can imagine there is a whole lot more that we do, but I'll leave it at that for now. What I am going to touch on is a little bit of who the Gauteng Liquor Board is and what it does, simply because I'm noticing some people in the room possibly have not been through this presentation. So I'll touch a little bit on that, but mainly what I'm going to be concentrating on is the last bullet, as you can see, in terms of the collective responsibility in the nightlife sector. So a little bit, I did mention that as the Gauteng Liquor Board, we are regulators of the liquor space. A few things that I want to just touch on, just in the context of what we are talking about today. As we speak in Gauteng, 5 regions, West Rand, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Sidibeng, etc. We have more than 30,000 liquor outlets. That's my alarm, sorry. Over 30,000 liquor outlets. Now, picture any region and ask yourself, should we really be having all those? And of course, we get taken to court. I mean, just the other day, Alexandra took us to court, the Alexandra residents. Funny enough, the residents and the potential liquor traders. The potential liquor traders were saying, Liquor Board, why are you refusing to give us licenses? The residents were saying, don't give licenses anymore in Alex. Now you can imagine on the same day taken to court for different things by the same neighborhood, but of course wearing different hats. So you can imagine when we say 30,000, and I'm saying more, and remember, these are the legal ones. there is a whole lot of other illegal ones. I'm sure you see them on a daily basis. One of the other things that I want to mention is that we contribute as the liquor trade industry. This includes manufacturing. That's where the SABs, Heinekens, etc. That's where they come in. It's actually more than 2 billion now, though we have 1 billion there. Of course, in other instances, it is the far end of the mainstream and the other way around. Out of all of those, women own more than 55% of liquor outlets. Can you believe it? And we tend to think it's a male-dominated industry. And I'm mentioning these, remember we're talking the collective responsibility of ensuring that our nightlife economy is safe. You know, every time you are going to be driving at night in Gauteng, you need to be thinking carefully and strategically choosing the streets you're going to be using. And what does that speak to? Safety. Even when you are out there in a restaurant, you keep looking at the time. Is it still safe? When you go out, you want to make sure you're walking with someone to the car. As you drive out, you're checking all the mirrors to see if anyone is following you. So you can imagine if we're saying 55% of those. And that includes the family businesses, the fancy restaurants that we go to, the mug and beans, etc. So you can imagine, in as far as BBBE is concerned, partially as a province, we've managed to kind of master that if we are saying women are 55%. Also, alcohol is regarded, and I don't have to mention this, it was mentioned earlier, it's regarded as a main contributor towards gender-based violence. You name it, all the social ills, literally I would say all, because you look at any other, somehow there is substance involved. And remember, alcohol, much as is legal, it's a drug. The difference is that it is easily accessible. Your medication is a drug. The difference is the doctor would give you prescription and say 1 tablet 2 times a day. At the bottle store, at wherever you go, you simply buy bottles and bottles. They don't even say to you, drink only 1 per day or so much, etc., etc. And the laughter is telling me something. So the point that I'm making is that alcohol is a drug. But in this case, I want to put it into context that it contributes towards a number of social ills that we have in our province, in our country, and the list goes on. Also, just out of interest, the Department of Health, on an annual basis, they spend more than 40 million just on alcohol-related illnesses. I'm not talking HIV/AIDS medication. I'm not talking any other that you can think of. Now, you can imagine if the stats are looking like that. I won't go through every single one of these, but the presentation will be given to you. You'll go through other stuff a bit later. The one thing that I thought I would also mention today is the illicit alcohol. Currently, we are faced with a huge number of illicit alcohol. Still, we're talking safety. Remember, when it comes to safety, we're not talking just physical safety, but also the consumption. Are you aware what it is that you're consuming? What possible negative effects would it have on yourself? So it is important to just keep that in mind. So this, just by the way, which I found very interesting, where we're sitting at right now on illicit alcohol, we are worse off before COVID-19. And worse off during COVID-19. Remember, a whole lot of, well, not a whole lot, but some people thought it was an opportunity when there was hard lockdown and they couldn't get their drinks, their favorite drinks. They decided to manufacture. Someone is laughing. I think it's one of the manufacturers. And having done that, they realized, oh, no, man, we can make a living out of this. This has potential. So that's why it's on the rise, but not only on the background manufacturing, but others are actually on the big brands. The big brands are being faked. You are paying this 1,000 rand on this fancy bottle thinking, it's Coke. Guess who's this Coco? Definitely not you in that case. It's actually the person that has mixed it up. So definitely we need to be considering all of these as and when we're talking about the nightlife economy and the safety around that. These I won't go through. I know they will possibly come up a little bit, but if I have to, I'll just go back to that. This also, I'll just skip. What I just want to mention in this case is that for us to be able to transform the Gauteng Liquor Board, the social, the socioeconomic realities, etc., we need to ensure that we all play a role. And I'm repeating what one of the speakers were saying. I need to be able to call you out as and when I see you at a funeral having a cooler box in your boot, or at a baby shower having alcohol in front of children. We need to be able to call each other out, one another out, and ensure that we do away with certain behaviors that are not necessarily yielding the results that we intend for. Just the other time we had one of the sessions together with UJ, we're talking about rethinking the culture of alcohol. Do we really need to be consuming the way we're consuming? Shouldn't we rethink? Are we saying abstain? Not necessarily. Alcohol is meant to be, a leisure drink. And of course, people, whether we like it or not, will continue consuming, but at least consume responsibly and ensure that you are aware of your surroundings as and when you are consuming. All right. Interesting also, still talking on the safety. Currently, the Gauteng Liquor Board at large, remember I talked about the 30,000 liquor outlets out there? The Gauteng Liquor Board only has 100 staff members. Remember, we're supposed to be regulating the liquor space. That means inspectors must be out there all the time. As we are here, they're supposed to be, Auckland Park, what's the nearest school? They're supposed to be making sure that the liquor outlets around there are not selling alcohol to children under 18. They need to be ensuring a whole lot of other things that should be taking place and not taking place. Now, if I'm saying it's only 100 employees, and out of those employees, only 25, only 30 are inspectors. 30. These are the ones that go out there all the time. The rest are doing other things. Now, are we really sure that we can say in Gauteng we are ensuring that compliance is taking place? As a result, we've become reactive. We'll come only when somebody complains about the noise level, when like the Zenzu issue that we had, only then. But of course, they do other things. It's not just those things, but you can imagine 30,000 legal outlets, legal licensed outlets, and the illegal ones, and then the inspections. So I'm painting a picture here that we might say it's government responsibility. It is the Gauteng Liquor Board's responsibility. It is our responsibility collectively. Some of the facts you'll go through at your own time. This is where I want to land right now. Why is it that the night economy is so important? Just like the day economy. Remember, each and every session in the day, there's the morning economy. You can imagine taxi drivers, in case you're wondering, why do they rush so much? They know that their peak times are the morning times, isn't it? Same as the afternoon. So to them, those are the times. Those are the times. For someone who is running an aftercare crèche, for them, the time is from after school to evening for the parents. For someone that is selling, whatever it is, but in this case, of course, we are referring to the night economy. Why is it that it's so important? I mentioned this earlier, employment, jobs, and the fact that in Gauteng, just by the way, being the smallest province that we are the economic hub. And we are the smallest province. And not only that, you can imagine in terms of the breakdown of the regions, etc. in Gauteng. Right now, as we speak, we're saying Sidibeng is one of the depressed areas. Simply because when you go there, there is a lot of activity taking place. I'm talking economically now. But is it really sufficient and equivalent to the number of people in the area? And I'm talking to researchers, isn't it? So some of these, I'm hoping as I'm speaking, it is pointers in terms of we need to be revisiting those areas. If you go to Westland as well, it used to be a mining area, but because of the extortion, I'll put it this way, because of the way the minerals have been utilized and finished, literally, I'll use that word, you find that the jobs are just not there. The people that used to live in the area out of mining, there's just no jobs. The reason we have mazamazamas, et cetera, is because they're trying to scrape through other resources that might still be left there. Now, the crux of what I'm here is this. who else are the role players? Who else are the stakeholders? What should we be doing? Who else needs to be involved? Of course, already I mentioned that you and I need to be involved to start with. Sad as it may sound, it means that when you and I go out, we need to take responsibility of ourselves, particularly at night. If you know that you're going to be consuming, you make sure that you're not driving. You'd rather get an Uber, Bolt, whatever it is that you're getting. Even if you do, are you sure that it is reputable? Are you sure you land home safe? What are the precautions that you do to alert your family that I left Auckland Park at 1:30. Here's the registration, here's this here, just so that should anything happen, at least there's something that would take place. But most important, with us as the Gauteng Liquor Board, we are very key, and it is very clear in our minds. There's very little entertainment that takes place without alcohol, if at all. I mean, if even in households, there is alcohol for entertainment, even at a funeral, at a gender reveal, at a baby shower, where the Miss Party doesn't even drink. I mean, it's a 1-year-old or 5-year-old, whatever that is, that just shows. But also importantly, we need the SAPS, the South African Police Services. Are we not working with them? We are. But just as I mentioned, the 30,000 liquor outlets vis-a-vis the 30 inspectors, SAPS is also overwhelmed. It is shocking, and I heard this on the news the other time, someone saying they went to report some case at a police station, and the police station was saying, we don't have cars to drive you home to see what's going on and to take a case or whatever the situation is. On the other hand, the metro officials, at this point, we're also elevating the way our inspectors function. At the moment, they just regulate the Liquor Act, but we are realizing that there are other areas that they need to look into. For instance, if they get into a liquor outlet, they need to be checking things like a fire extinguisher. That's not their jurisdiction, but it's one of those things that we know that mostly alcohol, if it gets mixed with fire, it can be something else. So metros are also very key. Who else is important? Civil society. I'm happy that today there's a lot of NGOs, NPOs in the room. We need you very much. Sadly, I heard one of the doctors that spoke, was it professor or doctor, mentioned that the Department of Social Development at some point withdrew the subsidy. I know that they are in the process of replacing that, because they are realizing that as government, we can't do it all. We are experts in certain areas, even social development itself. They can never really be able to run rehab centers, etc. So that's one of the things. So literally all I'm saying is that all the NGOs, whatever area, whatever social ill that you're touching on, because I know they vary. Some would be orphanages, hospices, HIV, AIDS, cancer, etc. But literally, we do need all hands on deck. Also the big players, the Heinekens, SAB, you name them, Diageo, etc. We need them. Mind you, they are the ones that are making profit out of the industry, isn't it? Vumanebo. Thank you. They're the ones that are making the most out of the industry. So they also need to be giving back. I know, of course, even now they are giving back, but at some point I'm like, after making so much, is what you're giving back really enough? Think about the challenges that are caused by alcohol. Can it really be enough, that little portion, which is their margin? Of course, they measure it the way they measure it. Also the traders, we need the traders. We invited a few traders and consultants. I'm not sure if there is one, I'm not noticing anyone, but we want them also to be part of these conversations, that at night, even during the day, when you are at the outlet, you need to be aware that your car is taken care of in the car. That's my other alarm. You need to be sure that you are safe. Your handbag is safe. You can go to the bathroom, maybe leave it behind. You want to know that your car is safe. So they play a role. Remember, they are also getting profits out of that. Who's making money out of the tavern? It's a tavern owner. So they can't just have their bread buttered where it feels comfortable for them, but it has to be all round. Also, government departments, have touched on some of them. In this case, it's social development, but also literally all the departments. The Department of Education, the LO teachers must be already be aware and be able to appropriately impart the knowledge, and the knowledge that is relevant, the 2025 knowledge that's required, not the 19 mamang, because those are some of the challenges that we're finding. You're finding older people educating young children, and there's just somehow no alignment, I'll put it that way. There's just no synergy. There's nothing wrong with the syllabus itself or the curriculum, but the way it is being done. You can imagine if 3-year-olds can use a smartphone and you're still using a chalk. Yes, private sector, all kinds of businesses, but particularly in that case, I'm referring to the security companies. I've mentioned the NPOs. We have the Gauteng Liquor Traders Association, where the associations have members that pay them on an annual basis for educational purposes, etc. We want them on board as well. We want them to be able to regulate their own members. If 30 inspectors cannot reach everywhere, they as associations should then be able to close some of the gaps. And of course, we did mention that even subs can't reach everyone out there. We need the schools. I have mentioned that tertiary institutions like this one, for instance, the public, citizens, communities, literally every single person should be playing a role in terms of eradicating. I call it literally a scourge. At the moment, when we talk within the Department of Economic Development and just GPG as a whole, we say crime is an apex currently in our country. So for us to be able to eradicate that, we need to all put our hands on deck. So literally for today, that was my message. How are we going to ensure that the night economy is safe? We all need to play a role. I remember a time, HIV/AIDS, I was a facilitator at the time. We would say we were all either affected or infected. So in this case with crime as well, you know, today you might not be the victim, but in the afternoon, tomorrow, you know, the following day. So literally for us to be able to safely say we live in a safe province, it is a province of choice, etc., etc. We need to ensure that we are playing the roles that we're supposed to be playing. We need to be able to assist the rehab centers as well, financially and otherwise. You know, every time I go to NPOs, they would literally say, not so much money that we need. Yes, we need money. Everyone needs money, but they would say a few hours, services, donations, and not just the financial donations as I'm mentioning, but it could be anything. I think one of the doctors did mention already that they received something like 3 cars or something like that. So yeah, that was my message in a very nutshell. I hope I'm still within my time. So for us to be able to safely be able to function and enjoy our province and enjoy all these facilities that have been built, we need to ensure that the province is safe. So it's not a subs matter. Aksindaba ya mapoisa, asitaba ya government, kitaba ya rona kaofela, we all need to ensure that we come together. That is why in my opening remarks, I was saying, thank you so much for involving us as the Gauteng Liquor Board, because we all need to be working together. We can't do it by ourselves, much as you cannot do it by yourselves. So we all need to be able to work together and eradicate crime in our province. Thank you so much, Lebu. I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cleo. I think we're going to open up for Q&A, and you touched on a very important issue, especially with illicit alcohol. I mean, who watches Vimba? You saw what is happening in the country, né? And she touched on a very serious matter because it affects the night and day economy. So based on her presentation, is there any question or comment? Any contributions? Okay, I see from the student volunteer and sir, and also from our CBOs. Okay. The room, okay.
Presentation. So I wanted to ask, is it possible, I know I might be thinking too much about it, but is it possible to limit the people's intake, comes to alcohol for safety?
Very good question. Should I answer now or wait for the other questions? It's a very good question, and we wish we could. Unfortunately, we can't. Remember during COVID-19, particularly the hard lockdown, and those days when the liquor traders were only able to trade Monday to Thursday, hospitals will tell you they experienced bliss over the weekends compared to now and before COVID-19 because of things that take place. So yeah, unfortunately we can't. We can only regulate the trading thereof. That's why I was saying we regulate the liquor trade. But whether today you want to go consume 6 bottles of wine or a glass or none, we can't really get that far in terms of regulating. But thank you for the question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure it's a question or a comment from me, but I have an issue with the advertisement. Number one, there's this Formula One movie that just came out, and it's sponsored by Heineken, but the people there are driving. So I had an issue with that, because it's like, it's a way to drink and drive. It has that undertone message. There's a lot of advertisements. We travel around Gauteng, there's a lot of alcohol that is being advertised, which is also something that entices people, that entices young people. And what I've noticed now is that young children from the age of 4 can go buy alcohol for their parents, and their parents sometimes will even give a sip. So how is that, maybe being regulated? I know that you guys always say not for sale under the age of 18, but it is happening, especially in townships. I see it happening where basically babies are buying alcohol for their parents, and it's a norm. So how is that being addressed? Are people being educated? The sellers, I'm not sure what they call that, but how are they being educated? Because it's one thing to have a license to sell alcohol, it's another thing to actually educate a person on how to be responsible for, for their clients, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks for that. That's a very loaded one. She touched on a number of things. Let's start off with the advertising. Some of you might remember, just before COVID-19, we were going around the whole of Gauteng, lobbying people to sign against the advertising of alcohol. Some of you are not able to remember. Unfortunately, because of the amount of money that advertising brings into the economy, we didn't succeed. Yes, we tried to reduce the number of billboards in certain areas, etc. You'll find they only reduced in the elite areas. If you go to the townships, in fact, now it has become more. Literally today, this afternoon, when you go home, just count as you enter the township how much advertising is taking place. So that's the one part. So unfortunately, that's one of the battles that we lost, same as the regulating of drinking, etc. Another important thing that you've touched on, which is more on the traders, we call them traders, the people that sell alcohol, whether it's a bottle store, liquor store, or a tavern, etc. They know the right thing to do. Chances are the people that are doing the wrong things, and I'll call it the trade that are not complying, are the non-licensed traders, and that's how we pick up. Why am I saying that? Before you get a license, you're subjected to training. Pretty much like K53, who's driving. Before you get onto the road, even to start the actual driving, there are rules, that you go through, which is the K53. So we kind of do the same session, just informing them with the basics in terms of what not to do. And because it's so difficult to get a license, they ensure that once they have the license, they comply. What can we do? We give them fines, we penalize them. The largest amount of fine that we issued recently in May was about 250,000. So you can imagine, but of course, with those, the small ones in the township, you kind of weigh, just by the way, in case you were not aware, they only made 3 rand per case of 12 profit only. So that is why they are aiming at selling as much as possible to accumulate the 3 rands per case. Unlike the ones that are, the franchises, if it stops, remember they get backup from their big brands, whether it's Checkers or whichever way. Then going back to the children, someone said sending a child to go buy alcohol or a child consuming alcohol. It takes us back to you and I. What display, what demonstration am I role-playing to my children, to other children that could be around me? They have to, literally know how children learn. They copy. So it is my responsibility as much as yours. Can we really go into private households to regulate? Not necessarily, but we do manage the liquor traders and say, do not sell to children under 18. And certainly they refrain from that. Of course, it comes with education, but the red flag is the minute you see a non-compliant liquor trader, that's already a belief that that's an illegal trader. I'm hoping I've covered the, it was about 2 or 3 that I've covered.
Someone says, I have a few comments that I've noticed. Quite an interesting, brief presentation, however, it's very interesting. You mentioned, Luti, you have about 30,000 registered liquor outlets in the province. Do you perhaps have a system in place to try and map out and have estimates of those that are not registered? That's the first question. Do you perhaps have estimates of those that are not registered? Secondly, in terms of compliance, we know, Wuti, in as much as you just indicated now that they go through rigorous training, those who have the licenses. I've seen a number of registered liquor outlets that have licenses displayed behind the counters that are not complying. In Alex, for example, as early as 7 in the morning, you would find the people, groups of people in front of a liquor outlet drinking as early as 7 in the morning. So it's not entirely true, in as much as you've made an example with K53. The national speed limit is 120. I do 165. It's an argument that a person would advance to say the training does not necessarily mean that people will not commit their offenses. Also, when you mentioned a list of your stakeholders, I think there's a very key stakeholder that you omitted. You mentioned that the Department of Social Development is a key stakeholder. However, there's the Provincial Substance Abuse Forum, which is independent of the Department of Social Development, and it's usually created or established in terms of, I think it's Section 58 of the Prevention of and Treatment for Substance Abuse Act 70 of 2008, and also the National Drug Master Plan. What are the systems that you have in place to make sure that it is adhered to? There are ways in which the pillars of the master plan are actually achieved in our communities, because we see particularly in the townships where there's excessive consumption of alcohol, and you'd ask yourself that in terms of those pillars of the master plan, are they really enforced, or is there anything that is done to achieve them? For example, harm reduction and supply reduction. People will tell you that supply reduction would be the role of SAPS in other substances. But when it comes to alcohol, because it's regulated, it's the responsibility of the regulatory body to make sure that there is supply reduction thereof. So I was wondering if there is a mechanism that speaks directly to the National Drug Master Plan, or We are just looking at the issue that we have a capacity issue in terms of human resource. Thank you.
Thanks. Another loaded one. I hope I'll remember all the points I should have taken and brought a pen with me. Let's start with the really last one. We are part of the National Youth Forum. It is hosted by the Social Development SU. We are part of the LS, the Local Drug Action. So we contribute. Let me put it this way, our role will be limited in a sense that, remember, it is their mandate to support, to see off. Some of you might be aware, it's just that I'm not seeing the sarcasm here. We would assist them even financially, etc., etc. So, yeah, we do that. Going back to the non-compliant categories, you know, like you say, up until even the traffic department is strict on the fact that your car can go 200, but in a school area it should be 60 or 40 in certain residential areas because of the schools, etc. You know, that's why with people will say, it starts with me. I need to be able to do the right thing even when no one is looking. I need to wait for the traffic lights to turn green before crossing over just because I'm not seeing anyone. Of course, at night it's a different situation and so on. So it all starts with us. Please remind me the first one. I'm moving now bottom up.
The issue of engagement, given that you have 30,000 registered, you perhaps have a mechanism in place to track and give a
That's 80,000. Yeah. So it's now going to almost towards double. It's more than half of the 30,000. So currently the illegal ones are 80,000. And just by the way, we shut them down today. They wait for this weekend, then they reopen again. And with the 30,000, with the 30 inspectors, you can only do so much. Gauteng is quite huge, so those are just some of the challenges. But yeah, the point I want to get to is that we need to be working together, collaborating together. SAPS is, you can imagine the number of police stations we have, is more local. They can easily identify. So every time we shut them down now, the strategy we've adopted, we go with the liquor officer from the police station so that they are aware and they can see, and then watch over them to make sure that they don't reopen. But you know what happens. Round envelopes fly over, and yeah. So, but yeah, we are doing what we can, but really, it boils down to you and I taking responsibility and you reporting. Report to us as the Gauteng Liquor Board. That's the only way that we know. Even if the brown envelope has gone to a SAPS official, a neighbor should actually be saying, hey, come back again, you know. So that's how really we're going to change our communities. I'm hoping I've touched on everyone. Thank you. Is there another one?
Oh, hi, Oscar. Thank you very much. Sorry. It's called guys, can we have this morning awareness and manage but I'm asking on the question how the people who serve in the school get registered, where do they go, what requirements are needed for them to qualify or to be there, and how many do we need to be, let's just consistent when it's inside this, and whenever there's an issue of a child eating something or a sweet that is drugged, there's no one to be protected. Now you are part and parcel of doing those things. So I just want to know which offices do we go to register or to be licensed, if there's a license required for utensils of schooling.
Okay. Firstly, alcohol is not allowed to be sold in schools. Or not,
this is not about alcohol, it's about your sweets and your chips.
Oh, no, that you come to 124 Main Street, that's the head office. You ask for Gauteng Enterprise for Kenya, some of you call it GBV or JEP. They then will be able to take you through the process and register you, whether it's as an informal trader or you want to be formal. They take you through the registration process, assist you with CIPC, SARS, all those things. They have ongoing training, support, funding, there's a whole lot. But it's 124 Main Street. I can't remember the floor, I think it's the 6th floor, but once you get to the ground floor, they direct you. They also have satellite offices, the whole of Gauteng. The Soweto one, I can see the people in Kiabaza, which area, but Soweto said Dube, and behind Baragwana, not Baragwana, but there's a traffic, a filling station just before you get to UJ in Soweto. Wulakwa Subs corner, they're also there, but pretty much what I'm saying is that we have satellite offices just about everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cleo. And I think she did indicate that the Liquor Act has been regulated. So definitely, when you have a free time, you can check out the Liquor Act that is regulated. Now we are going to move to our last speaker for the day. We're looking at the time. So you can reserve your.
Sorry, before that, I wanted to add on to the Liquor things there before she, but it's not a question. Maybe she can still have a seat there. My name is Ifa. I'm with Jace Lab. We are at 5 Lancaster Street. We are a restaurant and a pub. So I just wanted to make an awareness to sort of know, especially to the ladies, to sort of know how can we make this awareness, maybe to tell them, you know, they shouldn't go out to these clubs or shedins or taverns without having transportation money and money to buy themselves alcohol. Because I think those things, they add a lot on this violence and GBV. Because nowadays there's this new norm that is called Mavuso. You see, we've got a lot of boys that are arrested because they didn't have the normal Mavuso thing that they have to do after if the agreement has not been met. You see, so now they also take the advantage of the rights that they have to sort of know, I can quickly run to the police station and say, no, this guy did 1, 2, 3, 4 to me. Why he did not even do that? It's because maybe there was no funds or the agreements were not met. So now we've been having a lot of this, like I Uber a lot of girls there by the pub. Because now the guy doesn't want to Uber back home, all those things. Others, they didn't get raped because of that. Now you are with strangers, midnight, you see. So I don't know how we can add it on the women's maybe month or whatever. Just to sort of know, please, awareness, you shouldn't go out. First thing, you don't have transport money. Second thing, you don't even have money to buy yourself the ice blockers, which cost like maybe 200 rand in a place. So now for the guys that think, well, whenever we do that, we need to get something because I've already spent 3,000. You see. So even to the guys, we should also make the awareness. So let's stop meeting these strangers at the clubs. Then you say you're gonna buy this, and then you don't do that. Because the rights nowadays are, you know, are with the women when it comes to those things for clubs and all that. Yes, something like that. So I think that is what the reality that is happening nowadays there in these pubs, clubs, and all that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You raised the gender equality issue, but I think we will, like you said, you recommended for Women's Month, we'll talk about it. But also the same guys that are assisting these young ladies from Mabuso, they find themselves with breakfast being served to them. Well, anyway, it's an issue for another day. So, but let's continue. Thank you for that point. We're going to go to our last speaker for the day. And we really want to thank you for your patience. So Ms. Leonie Marius is going to be talking to us about how community leadership can shift GBV culture, right? And I just want to share a bit about her. She's an author, a speaker, a seasonal leadership coach, and an organizational development consultant who embodies the core values of family and professional excellence. As a TEDx speaker and activist, she brings her expertise on the public stage, advocating for unity and mutual learning in diverse environments. So with a track record of success in navigating and leading difficult conversations, Leonie is highly regarded by the leaders and organizations seeking transformative change. In conclusion, her acclaimed leadership coaching program and her books attest to her unparalleled skills in driving positive outcomes within personal and corporate settings. The last session we had with her, she did display her books, but let me not steal the spot for her. Let's give her a round of applause and she'll elaborate more.
Everybody. Everybody is well. As Lebu has just introduced me, my name is Leonie Marie. I'm going to move away from the podium. Today, my topic is going to be very different from everything that you guys have heard. I'm not going to speak statistics or legislation or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to be talking to you guys from the content of this book. So this is my first book, which I published in 2020 during hard lockdown. I'm going to be talking to you guys from the content of this book. So I'm a survivor of gender-based violence 6 times. And I'm going to take you through that. So my topic is actually overcoming the weight of sexual assault, right? So I grew up in a house of gender-based violence. I opened the book in chapter 1 titled Dad Wound because my father was the seed of gender-based violence in our household. Between the ages of 5 and 6, that's what I remember. My dad used to abuse my mom physically. So our house was very religious, if I can put it that way. My mom was my Sunday school teacher and my dad was involved in ministry, playing drums in church. And so every Sunday after church, my dad would invite the whole church for Sunday lunch. And my mom, she was so kind, she had to cook for all those people every Sunday. You know, there's some Sunday we don't feel like making that spree of 7 colors. She had to learn very fast every Sunday, this is what's going to happen. So when Sunday after lunch, so entire church is there for lunch, pastors and everything in the house. The atmosphere in the house was electrifying, right? So it would be men sitting watching soccer, talking, or any sports. Women in the kitchen singing, laughing, kids running around, laughing. And it was a flat, by the way. But the minute everybody left, everyone went home, the atmosphere in the house changed. And it turned into a grey site. The conversation would start about who was looking at my mother for too long, whose joke she was laughing at. So she's a beautiful woman. And that is where the abuse would start. Physical abuse. This happened every Sunday. 11 o'clock at night, my mother would pack me and my brother up and we would walk down to my grandmother's house. Every Sunday. Boy, if there ain't Jesus, you better turn it down. You're going to give that person a little bit of time to answer it from you. Sounds like a lack of action. Okay, we continue. And so this was our life, right? Every Sunday. And I remember the very last Sunday night we spent in this house, in this flat. I woke up the next morning to commotion again in the TV room, and I woke up 6 years old. My mom sitting on the one side of the flat, I would say, of the TV room in a white fur coat covered in blood. And my dad was sitting on the other side with a door handle in one hand and the knife in the other hand. So I couldn't understand if my mom was bleeding from the knife or the door handle, right? And so that moment I thought to myself, okay, this is the last time we're going to go through this. Let me confront him. And I confronted him. I asked him, why do you keep doing this to my mother? Don't you love her? Don't you love us? You don't understand what this does to us. So in that moment, he put the door handle and the knife down and started talking to me. That's when my mom managed to get away. Later that evening, Pastor, his wife, and my mom's best friend came over. I remember my mom's friend taking glass pieces out of my mom's skull after war because he beat her with a flower vase on her head. And my mom's friend said to her, this man is going to kill you. And so this was the last Monday we spent in that house. We moved to my granny's house. I was 6 years old. A few months later, my dad died. So he had a heart disease, and a few months after that, he died, right? So that was me at 6 years old. At that age, I knew that I wouldn't want to be married to somebody like my father. He was an amazing father, but he was a lousy husband. And at the age of 6, I knew that. And so he passed away when I was 6 years old. 6 years later, my mom remarried. The cycle of abuse continued. Same story. Man involved in church, preach. Guys, if I can tell you how this guy preached. Man of God anointed. Same story. And so one evening, I remember I had now had enough of my mother being beaten, and I decided I'm going to go in there with a knife and I'm going to stab him. A butter knife. But that didn't happen that way, right? So the following year, I was 13 years old. My mom sent my brother and I to live with my granny. And this is where I had my first encounter with gender-based violence. I was sexually assaulted for the very first time at the age of 13 by a family member. At the age of 14, I was sexually assaulted by our school caretaker. So there's something that I need you guys to understand about I don't really want to call it the relationship, but the perpetrator says things to the victim. And that becomes part of their belief system. Now, one thing that you need to know and understand is that they are very strict in finding their victim. A perpetrator of sexual assault is not going to prey on somebody when he sees this person comes from a stable house with loving mother and father. He looks for victims where there's an absent father, and I'm not just talking about absent not around. You can be present but still absent, right? That's the kind of people that they're looking for, and they groom, we call it grooming, they touch the thigh first, in the hips to see how far can they go. Is this the type of child that's going to embarrass it in front of everybody and say, not touch me? That's the kind of people that they're looking for. So everything the perpetrator said to me at that age, I believe. At the age of 15, and I'm just going to run through it because there's a lot that I want to cover after, right? So at the age of 15, I was raped in our house, in my room, on my bed, by a family member. At the age of 16, I was sexually assaulted in a taxi at gunpoint. And I wasn't the only one in the taxi, in fact, the taxi was full. Later that same year, again on a train by another stranger. Fast forward to 21 years old, I'm in a relationship, engaged, and I was raped by this big center. So at this point of my life, I despise men. I believe women are the same, and there was nothing anybody could tell me. I had 4 reasons why this happened to me, because it's 6 times, right? I believe 1, that I was ugly, because beautiful girls don't get raped and abused. 2, because I didn't have a father. 3 was because my stepfather wouldn't accept me. And the 4th reason, which made most sense to me in my childlike mind, was the Bible says the sins of the father will fall upon the children. And I believe that God was punishing me for what my father had done to my mother. And that was the reason that I wouldn't say cultivated me or kept me safe, but I believe that because of this is what I'm going through. So at the age of 21, I landed up in hospital because one of the guy that I dated, he called me one day and said, you need to go test yourself for AIDS. Flustered, I went and I got myself tested for AIDS. But between walking from the doctor's room to the nurse's station, I blacked out. Woke up on a hospital bed where I was told I'll never be able to conceive a child. The doctor said, if you carry your fetus for longer than 6 weeks, it will be a miracle. But it was what he said next that changed my life. He said, I need you to find what brought you here and deal with it, or it will be painful. In that moment, it was like the street lights came on. They don't go on anymore, right? And in that moment, I knew exactly what it was that I had to do. I needed to forgive. I didn't know what forgiveness was. I didn't know how to forgive. Where do I start? But I knew that I could no longer walk around dysfunctional. Being dysfunctional, attracting dysfunctional men, having dysfunctional relationships. I wanted to be whole. I wanted to be beautiful. I wanted to attract a whole man, have a whole relationship, and give birth to a whole children. And so I embarked on a journey where I started my healing. The first step of my healing was forgiving myself. Because I believe if I didn't wear that nightdress that evening, my uncle would have violated me at the age of 30. I believe if I didn't go to the club that night, I wouldn't have been in a taxi and I wouldn't have been violated at gunpoint. So I first had to forgive myself and tell myself that it was not about what I wore or where I was. And I want to add to somebody's point, somebody that made a point earlier about people should pay for their own dreams and they shouldn't. That is the toxic rape culture that we are feeding as South Africans. Whether I'm sitting in front of you naked, whether you bought me a drink or not, if I'm in your car or an Uber, if I say no, this is my body. You have no right, just because you bought me a meal and bought me a drink, you've got no right to have sex with me. And this is where we change and teach and educate. You'll see my banner says educate our voice. What toxic culture do we live in where we enable our boys by letting them know if you spend 3,000 rand on a girl, you have the right to sleep with them? No, that is toxic. And as a boy mom, I've got 3 boys. This is a tug of war conversation, and I hold back no punches when I have this conversation with my boys. I tell them, even if you are inside of her and she says no, you take it out. Because I'm not coming to visit somebody in jail for it. And let me be clear. We say no in different ways. I'm not ready to push your hand away. We say, Me rejecting you in any way or any form is a no. If I'm not saying yes to you, it is a no. Because every woman, even though we are busy, like I say to my son, even if you are inside of her and she says no, she's got the right to change her mind. That is our word. And if you don't, that is it. So let us enable our kids to be better men out there. Because if you now thinking you pay 3,000 rand and you deserve to sleep with that person, what does that say about who you are being? What does that say about you without being? Secondly, we shouldn't be teaching our daughters to defend themselves. We should be raising our boys to be gentlemen. And if you and I can't teach our boys to be gentlemen, this toxic culture of rape and abuse will continue and perpetuate the cycle of abuse and rape and gender-based violence and femicide continuously. I want to leave you guys with a call to action, which I should have done when I started. I want you to take a look around the room and see if you can identify any abused woman in the room. Now I want you to see if you can identify any abused men in the room. Can you see any perpetrators of abuse, male or female? Why is that? Because gender-based violence doesn't have a face, it doesn't have a nationality, a creed, a hair type, or language. And let me hit you in the gut. In this room, 1 out of 10, 1 out of every 10 people represented in this room is either a victim or a perpetrator, or knows a victim or a perpetrator. And that means all of us in this room is accountable for each other. So, when it comes to the leadership of gender-based violence in communities, accountability is key. So what am I saying to you guys? We are accountable for each other. GBV is not a Ramaphosa thing. It's not a sex thing. It's not a UJ thing. It's a you and I thing. You and I are accountable for each other. If you go to the club with your girls, are you taking accountability for the girl that you're walking with? You go to the toilet. You guys leave your drinks open. You tell your friend to hold your drink. Are you letting your friend go to the toilet alone? Or you let them walk out with the guy alone, not knowing anything about the guy that you're walking with? Because he paid for drinks now, he's entitled to take her home, take her to the car. We are accountable for each other. If you look at this banner over here, it says it is our hear nothing, say nothing, do nothing mentality that lets victims astray. You and I are accountable. We are responsible for every victim that doesn't get support. You know why? Because when I first came out and spoke out, I was told I'm looking for attention. And so as a victim, I'm not even going to go lay a charge because in my household, my stepfather said I'm looking for attention. So if the people in my house doesn't believe me, why am I expecting the community to believe me? We are responsible for eradicating gender-based violence. As much as we are victims, as much as we know victims, it is our responsibility to ensure that they move from victim to survivor to where I am an activist. It is not an easy journey. Abuse alters your state of mind and your way of life. And yes, one of the speakers mentioned it. GBV impacts productivity. And I'm saying this because I was a victim. And I was operating with a victim mindset in everything that I did in the corporate space. But the minute I became whole, I now started operating at my highest level of practice. As I conclude, the title of this book is Be From the Rapist. In the communities that you operate, are you helping victims be from the rapist? Why is it be from the rapist? Because as victims, we put the rapist or the abuser on a pedestal. We say, because I was raped, I'm going to resort to drugs. Because I was raped, I'm going to become a sexual worker. Because I was raped, Everything that we do festers around being raped. But what I'm saying, and if you look at the cover of this book, it's a little girl with an X in her hand. I'm saying to you, take your power back. The communities that you serve, for those of us that have startups, the psychology of sales says every person has to see something 3 times before they buy it. When people walk into your tavern or your nightclub, are there any signage relating to gender-based violence? Outreach centers, where they can ask for help, where they can get help. In your bathrooms, you have a telephone number behind the door saying, if you are a victim of gender-based violence, this is who you need to reach out to. It is our responsibility as a community to take accountability and ensure that the spaces our community members operate in, where they go and they drink and have fun and dance at night. Because there's nothing wrong with drinking and having fun at night. The issue is being violated by somebody. What are we doing in our spaces to ensure that the people, men and women, that comes in and out of our spaces are safe when they arrive, when they enjoy their drink, and when they leave? We are responsible for each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Leonie, for, I don't know how, can we take a deep breath? Thank you so much for opening up to us about your past. But I think most importantly, she was teaching us about, GBV requires a multifaceted approach. Prevention, response, and accountability, that's what we need. So we're going to open up for a Q&A. And because of time, it will just be one round, meaning like the first people that we identify, and then from there on we will move to conclusion. So I just wanted to check who of you have questions or a comment. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, in that order.
Okay, thank you. I think I touched something that was very sensitive there. But when I'm speaking about these things, I don't want to shy away from the truth. I'm talking about something that is realistically happening. And I'm not saying it's right for a guy to take a woman, because they've spent something or they've done this and this and that. But now, if you check, each and every weekend, from Friday to Sundays, those are the most likely cases that we're having as pub managers or as club managers. You'll find that, okay, I'm Ubering maybe more than 6 guys. First thing, they came there, they don't know the people that brought them here. You see, that's the first problem. Now, you allow those people to, I'm not saying it's right, you allow the stranger now to spend that much money or to do all those things for you. Now, on the imagination of saying, well, no, they are going to get something from you. At the end of the night, you say, no, I'm not going with you, I don't know you. You see, that's where this fight starts. So somebody spoke about to prevent. So now, how do we prevent these things? That's why now we have to teach these girls and even boys, like you said, even the boys also know. It doesn't mean that if I take you to McDonald's, I need to kiss you after McDonald's. We need to teach the men that. But the issue that is happening now in South Africa, or in Joburg as such, there's a lot of just girls, I think they call themselves hosts or promoters, or all of those, they've got names. So that's why even if, let's say, if you are a worker, she said, no, we shouldn't call them prostitutes, they're called sex workers because they add on the economy of South Africa. But now, if they don't have a card, like a metropolis, that shows you, no, me, I'm working with this type of thing. If you talk to me, you say you're gonna do this and this and this for me, then I've got a card. I'm permitted to do that, which means that I'm a sex worker. You do this for me, and then I do this for you. I think that way will be fair. Because now, if you check, there's a lot of boys that are arrested. Others, it's not even, you know, they didn't even do anything. I've got a lot of cases like that. I rewind the camera. They say, oh, this guy was touching me, this girl was doing this to me, this one was doing this to me. When you do the research or the investigation, you find out, oh, it did not happen like that. Maybe it's because now she did not get what she was hoping to get. Sorry. She did not get what she was hoping to get at the end of that night. So now, those cases like that, they are mostly likely, a lot of them, if you've got a rape from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from a tavern, it might, 80% chances, it's because that person was not given what they were looking for. I'm not saying there's no rapists that are just, you know, walking around looking for ladies to go and rape them in such a way. But most rape cases that we check now, they are from those type of things, not from, now, me myself, I have to quickly go and pick up my daughter. I'm not sure if the taxi driver from the school to my home is going to be. You see, I make sure that I go and pick them up and then I drop them up. Because it's girls, and I don't know how the girls in South Africa, it's not nice. So when I was saying it that time, I was not saying, no, maybe it's right for the guys to sort of know, okay, if I give you this, I'm going to get this or that. No, I'm just putting it to sort of, if we prevent. Because if you don't have those type of people, the guys, they won't really, they will end up going to where the sex workers maybe are permitted to do those type of work, right? Because now they can still know. In our restaurants, they don't have prostitutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
You remind me of my past, but I don't want to talk about it. It is a problem. But what I realized with this abuse, if a woman is being abused or is being beaten by her partner, most of the women, they say, yeah, he ate his money. Yeah, what's in my life? Yeah, he has a right to cheat. I'm shy. And we forget something very important, that you are also a man. You've got daughters. And if it can happen to your daughter, how would you feel? And we even closes our doors. If someone is crying outside now, they say, no, I'm shy. You just close your door, you don't open the door for this person. So, like, I think the problem that we are having is the attitude that we are having as a society towards the people who have been abused, and the judgment that we are having. That is why these
perpetrators, they get away with it. And most of the time, they're the ones who are like, we are saying, yeah, they've got rights more than the victims. And it starts with the women. Women are powerful. We know how powerful we are. Starting from our household, starting from our family, if we can teach our children, our grandchildren to do the right thing, that's what the whole society can do. Thank you.
So that wasn't a question, that was a powerful comment, but what I want to say to that is it is true and it is proven, statistically it is proven that 3 out of 5 women think it's okay for a man to beat his wife. And 2.5 out of 5 men think it's okay for their brother to beat their wife. We victimize the victim further every day, in every situation. We victimize the victim further. And that is why, again, I'm coming back to accountability to say it is our hear nothing, say nothing, do nothing mentality that makes victims down. Thank you for your comment. Was there a third question? Okay.
Hi, Yami.
Hi, Nance.
Thank you for that testimony of goodness and grace and God's mercy and life. I just wanted to ask in terms of, you spoke about the healing aspect. I want to know where are the platforms for support that we can find as women or as men, for boys, for the boys, and how best or where could we find that for our communities to benefit from it? Thank you.
Thanks for that question. So I'm happy to come into your community or organization to collaborate with you on that. There are also other platforms, there's tiers. They actually, I think one of the best in the country, that they align you with safe houses within your community and also support you through financial sustenance. So tiers is one of my, I always refer people to tiers. Danny?
Thank you so much. I wish all the boys who are attending this session. There's too many excuses we want to defend ourselves. From South Africa to Cairo, internationally, and making excuses for men. I see times when the transport to the of the bus, 8 in the evening, the pace of a woman towards where she's getting to is different from mine, because I've got a privilege. Because I'm a man, nobody's going to mark me. If you try, the physical strength that was taken to me from there. So, with women, there's always a disadvantage. But I think the best is thank you. I hope we can have other sessions where you repeat what you said to me, because I've had boys, I just want to take an example. I used to manage residents of college boys. They were in trouble one day because one she was greeting and trying to propose, and he touched her ankles. Now it's something that's done in this village where he comes from. It's accepted there, even though there's other things. And the person that he did this to did not know what was going on at the time, and she took it as sexual harassment. So the letter comes to me. I tried not to explain this to this boy, that what you did, it was a violation to someone's body, and it is wrong. And if I don't tell you this, one day we'll visit you in prison because you do worse. Now in the villages, big brothers will teach us as young boys back in the days that when you try to sleep with a virgin, the virgin is very strong, violent. You will close their legs and you must use strength in order for you to be able to penetrate and so on. And when you think of it, that was rape when you talked. It's a very, very and it's acceptable across everywhere, and nobody will say that it's wrong because of that. But the biggest thing that I realized one day that as men, we need to, it's a very uncomfortable, when you have to change the algorithm of centuries, because we're told that we are supposed to be this and that. But if we don't stand up, no matter how, I come from a village, girls of play have to cut their grass because they're still virgins, so it's part of our culture, and there is been sexualized. And so I'll tell somebody, if someone, no matter how naked a person is, I don't have any right towards that particular person. And I think we need more of these conversations for young men to hear them, particularly to even hear them from other men, because also this in society, and this other problem, it's a whole point that we can come back and discuss this upset father. It's another topic for another day, because every single mother who is a single mother, they're not just a single mother, but they're a single parent who has to be a father, and someone else has to come and father the boys. And you see like that working in this, having the spaces where you must manage 400 boys, when 90% of them were raised by their mothers, and they then adopt different fathers. The father you adopt, one is a gangster, one is a security, but then they go school, and you do not even know what are the lessons that are being sort of been transferred to this particular place. But the biggest thing I think next time we can maybe CP again, invite the young men to hear this and just get more voices to educate, to try as big as we can to cover the gaps that we need to be, because I'm not going to say that women must wear on how they're supposed to drink, on who they're supposed to do that. They are not supposed to do their wrong. There is a biggest thing that we just have to talk about it more and more, even at church. Because it's the pastors that are doing it during sessions or somebody's opening up with, hey, Pastor, we can't pattern, but no, but then they're just wearing a sheepskin in the box. And it's not really passing. It's already but it's us that are the perpetrators. We are the ones who are raping the girls and abusing them and abusing women. We are the ones that are guilty of it. And I think the more we say it, initially it was very uncomfortable to say it's such a platform. We must say it so that it doesn't come to for the minute. So that the more we say it, another person will say tomorrow that no, the ones that are pleased, it's us. When I say it's men, if you don't shift it from you, then you say what happened. It's not all of us. Yes. It's men, it's black, white, color, all of us are the ones that are killing the women. Let's find a way on how we continue to stop it, so that the next time, in 20 years' time, 15 years' time, we don't have someone who has to go what you go through as a child, because there's no girl that's supposed to go through that. And one doesn't really know what to say, because it may be emotional and it's not useful. And I'm sorry for what you went through in your life. And I'm glad that you're able to come and discourage us as you are, to give us the lessons. The other girls committed suicide and chose another route, and they are not here to tell us from you. I thank you.
Thank you so much for your points on that. I think it's valid in the day that we live in, and means I'm big on accountability. We need to, as a country, become comfortable with having the uncomfortable conversations. We can no longer seduce our sons with the idea and the notion that you have a right to somebody's body. This guy that I was engaged to, he felt that because he put a 15,000 rand ring on my finger that I should just say this. And I was like, no, I'm not married to you, we're not having sex. So if his parents had that conversation that you are not entitled to anybody's body. Today there's something called marital rape. There's something called marital rape. So when are we going to have uncomfortable conversation with our sons to say, come on boys, let's sit around the table. My 9-year-old also knows. You don't touch a woman inappropriately. When she says no, we will have a song for you. This is my body. Nobody should disrespect my body. And I shouldn't disrespect anybody else's body. So that entitlement of us being entitled to somebody's body or sexual needs to come clean. We need to be accountable and have the difficult conversation and say, like you open up saying, stop making excuses. Let us stop making excuses for this. And that's the only way we're going to eradicate gender-based violence. Thank you so much to the CE team for having me. I appreciate it. I need to dash because I need to fetch my daughter from school.
Thank you so much, Ms. Leo. Can we give all our speakers a round of applause? Thank you so much. And Mr. Bongigos, we've noted your recommendation, or we'll make a follow-up, especially on another session involving the boy child. If you look at the program, we are now at the section of vote of thanks and way forward. And for that session, I'm going to invite our senior manager for community engagement, and that is the one and only Miss Fiona McClory. May we please give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Ayobi. I was very disappointed yesterday when somebody said they could not pronounce Ayobi. Such a beautiful surname. Sure. I don't know what to say. I'm really, I don't know what more I can say. I think everything and more still needs to be, discussed. We still need to speak about this. We need, I think I know I'm closing, but in my mind, what kept on, ringing was, we need more of this. We need to have these conversations. And the more conversations we have, the more we realize that, yes, we need to continue having these conversations. I don't know the gentleman that was sitting there. I think he left. Yeah, maybe we should not do this on a Wednesday. A lot of people tend to be very busy on Wednesdays. We'll see. Maybe we'll send a survey to check what is the best time or day of the week to have this forum. So because most of the speakers have left and some of the our audience have also left. And we do understand there's quite a lot of commitments. We are here to discuss a very important issue, but we also have other things that we need to attend to. I don't want to be between you and lunch. Lunch is ready and we are going to eat and still continue talking. But I think in closing, I really need to say this. The first thing that I wanted to mention with the gentleman that was here, I met him earlier and I was very happy. I think he's the very first person from an establishment that really spoke and really shared with us the realities that they face. Yes, it's not the ideal, and we want to change that. We want to change that narrative. We want to change, the culture. We want to change the entitlement. We want to change the attitude. We want to share knowledge and education. That's why we started this project. We want to bring everyone. We have different stakeholders. We have the transportation sector, your e-hailing services. We have, or we want more nightlife establishments, your restaurants, bars, and clubs, all those places that mostly young people frequent. We know that in terms of vulnerability, young people and young women are more vulnerable in the nightlife economy. And we know that the nightlife economy is not going away. Ms. Cleo shared earlier, and you saw the statistics and the amount that it is bringing to our country. So it's not even something that we can say, no, bars and clubs and all those places should close. They continue to exist. They have been there for many years. They've tried in America some years ago where they said no more. I can't even remember, but there was a time where they tried to stop the sale of liquor and it was chaos. Now it is being sold and regulated. And through regulation, we hope and have something to hold on to say, can we work together? Yes, we understand that people want to have fun, right? I believe that everyone who goes to those places to have fun and relax, I don't think there's anybody that goes to a bar, restaurant, park to really be a victim or targeting somebody. You know, there's all these victim blaming narratives that go that no, it was maybe politically arranged, or all those things that makes it hard for victims to come up and speak, or survivors to come up and speak that this is what I've a note of from the speakers. We say gender-based violence. We don't say, we're not necessarily saying violence against women. Yes, the statistics tell us that majority of victims and survivors of gender-based violence is women, but men also experience violence. Men also experience gender-based violence. I was in my past career, I was a social worker, and I keep thinking of this case I once had, and it's quite common now. You do find men who go to those places to drink and have fun, take somebody they met with, and they wake up naked with nothing in their houses. It's not something that is mostly spoken about because men don't want to come up and talk about it. So we do, and I do like our colleague from Student Affairs who said we need to have more men, you know, in this spaces to also share. And I think the way that we can, the only way we can eradicate GBV is if we work together, if we collaborate. There was a comment earlier, somebody said that we all doing the same thing in our little spaces, and we are trying to avoid that. And we've seen that most donors and funders want organizations to collaborate. In one of our funding masterclass that we had for our community-based organizations, we had somebody that shared that right now, donors want people to work together. You cannot keep doing the same things from different people, also preaching to the same people. So that's why we brought our community-based organizations, our community members, and different sectors to say, how can we work together to eradicate the scourge of gender-based violence? You might not be a victim or survivor, but you definitely would know somebody. It can be your cousin, it can be your relative. We all know somebody who has experienced gender-based violence, but the other part, we don't know so many perpetrators of gender-based violence. We know the victims and survivors, not so. It's very rare, very, very rare. In my previous career, I've only had one person who came up to me and said, I hit my girlfriend. That's not who I am. I need help. What can I do? And that is what, you know, we're not saying we condone the action, but we need people who can say, hey, this is what happened. I need help, because we're not in South Africa. We do not have the death sentence. So if you commit GBV, yes, you will be held accountable, but we also need to be rehabilitated. The only way we can get somewhere is if we work together from different sectors where we can not feel that if I say this, I will be judged. Yes, people might judge you. It's possible, but we want people to feel strong and encouraged to stand up and speak up against GBV. And with this project, we want to continue and promise you we'll have more of these conversations. And we want you to take the information that you got today back to your communities and share it, and let us all come together and end GBV. Let us come together and find solutions. I mean, how can it be for so many years as South Africa, we've been dubbed as the rape capital? You know that we are highest in the world in terms of rape. We talk about this, we try many things, but how come it's not working? That's the question we should be asking ourselves. How come there's more and more cases of GBV every day? We're talking about it. Maybe we need to do something different. And that difference is to come together, listen to one another, contribute, be uncomfortable. Some of these topics are very uncomfortable. I wasn't here during opening, and I do apologize. I had another meeting. It can be uncomfortable. It can be triggering. We always, and we should say in the beginning of our engagement to say, please, the whole session is a trigger warning. And should you need support, please speak to us so we can refer you to the right people to support you. And I hope that today was really enriching for you, that you got to learn something that you will take home with you. I did summarize what some of the speakers have said, but they have left. And I hope that you did take notes. The video, the live stream, will it be available as a video? So you can also watch it later, maybe share it with others. But we want to build this community where we all come together and find solutions for GBV. Something that we will also be starting as part of the project is research. We want to understand those incidents that the gentleman from one of the establishments was saying, the Mavuso. We know about Amavuso, but nobody talks about it. It's not well researched. So we as the university, with our experts who work on GBV, will be going out to find out what is happening in those spaces. You know, what type of GBV is taking place? What are people experiencing? And also the people working there, how do they respond to this? If now somebody comes and say, I have a situation like this, what do they do? I mean, as establishments, imagine having to pay for transport for people. That is, you're trying to make money, not to spend money. So those are some of the things that we want to look at, and we want to have open and uncomfortable but necessary conversations. So I do apologize that I didn't intend to. This is very different from what I had intended to say in my closing, but I want to re-emphasize what our last speaker said, Ms. Leonie, that this should be a call to action to each and every one of us. It is our responsibility. You cannot say, that person, what were they doing there? Why at that time? All of us should come together and find a solution to this. It is our problem, each and every one of us. Whether you go to nightlife settings or you don't, whether you drink or you don't, somehow it will affect you one way or the other. So we look forward to seeing you in the next forum discussion, and we will also be having workshops. Thank you for alerting us to the need to work with young men as well. Through those workshops, that's when we will unpack more of these issues, and the forum will continue. We still have 2 more to go for this year. Thank you so much. During lunch, let's also get to network and share some ideas and information. And thank you again for coming and for staying up until the end. May you have a great day further. Thank you.
I think let's give Ms. Fiona a round of applause. She's going to bless us in terms of our second lunch. So just to maintain order, our volunteers will usher us to the food station, and then we take it from there. And Ms. Fiona also emphasized that we should network, make sure that we collaborate, and then we'll take it from there. Sorry, yes, okay, Mr. X reminded us, maybe please have a group photo. Should anyone come in front? Okay, I'm going to hand over to Mr. X, who's going to direct this session.
Can you please make our way this side, maybe, and then have a good picture, and then we can have lunch afterwards. Just a quick picture. Suggesting we stand this side. Maybe. Everyone.